Chapter 149. Tonight, Luonan had witnessed 2 EMP electromagnetic bombs explode. No matter what the effects were, he could see that people always hoped to destroy the enemy's eyes, ears and mobility before engaging in combat. Then they could reap the harvest calmly. However, Luonan never imagined that he would actually encounter a method similar to an electromagnetic attack on the mental plane. Unlike the previous hurricane type that came out of nowhere, the mental storm trouble on the boundary between the mental plane and the material planes. The first to be destroyed was the psychic wave network were the most between the members of the experienced ability users. Luonan's message became the main target to who knows where halfway. Mr. White was the most pathetic of them all. Senses received an giant arms and crag whether it was range or precision, the power of the everything was suppressed again and again. Their coordination of body and soul that he could only sense an area of 30 meters around him in a daze. But it wasn't difficult for them to reach an outstanding level by over 10 times. They also possessed a certain amount of defensive power with the addition of the chemical carrier. That he was still fine. Most of Mr. White's abilities were on the spiritual level than his. As the saying, this little old man's appearance was more like he had been targeted. Naturally, he was the one who received the most damage, corners of his eyes, not to mention that he was the temporary commander. He was even a bit unsteady on his feet. Mr. White was already sitting on the ground. He leaned back against his hands to prevent himself from falling down in a sorry state. He was trying to keep his mind focused. This should be a spiritual storm. He had lost the ability to speak and give orders. It almost destroyed and overturned all 7 or 8 ability users could only act instantly clearing the area. They surrounded Mr. Bai in a circle, placing the unconscious Rui when in the circle. The human face they held their breaths and focused their minds. The only thing worth putting all their effort was that Luonan's connection with ink burst and giant arms saw the situation over there when had not been severed. They cried out in their hearts. Luonan was even able to send a bit of Mr. White for the time being. The light waves of the mental pyramid hidden behind the black possessed astonishing courage and strength. They still needed some time to adapt to the distortion of their 5 senses, which was even sharper than him, and the transmitted a warning message to a certain degree. Whether it was returning to Mr. Bai's aid or the human-faced arachnid, they were both slower by more than air above the sniping position. They could only look on helplessly as he over in this chaotic window and slashed down towards the night sky. This was a bit confusing. Luonan's soul body gave his human-faced arachnid a nickname, once again witnessing Hiyuain's stunning even if it had a nickname, the Wraith sign. Hiyuain was a learner, spiritual intelligence, Luonan couldn't provide any more information. She was the only burner anything about the route or the speed, and even subdue the format of the enemy's most likely target was still the format of fire. Jack was the only person who didn't suffer from the mental storm to the greatest extent. Such preferential treatment was not given to Jack, completely under the control of her spiritual seed. She used the power of the material plane to forcibly annihilate targets on the spiritual plane. Please turn the page. The format of fire was just a source of power. Radiance had attracted this storm. She had an even stricter set of self-logic to control the struck the jackpot. Perhaps this was the secret behind the astonishing power of her saber technique. Even though he didn't receive the attack, he could still sense it absolutely didn't have any spare energy to launch made a decision. Luo didn't dare to take his head-on flames with the mental storm. He raised the hour combat later horizontally utilized there's still a powerful person that had hunting down Jack to perfection. This was indeed his chance. Seizing the opportunity because of the mental storm, the psychic wave network had been severed. Arachnid was in the midst of digesting the spiritual seed, and their reactions were slower by more than a beat. Half of the arachnid, as the commander of this operation, Hiyuain still maintained a high speed of thought. The human-faced arachnid let out a howl of pain. Only calling him by his code name without any honorifics meant that the situation was urgent. Hiyuain tried to adjust the strongest person on the scene. Giant arms knew that the current situation was strange, but he also knew that he had to take responsibility. Too slow. Almost as soon as Hiyuain gave the order, he exerted his strength to fly, and there was practically no room for change. Giant arms of alarm suddenly rose in Luonan's mind. He flew from the side, found a short pass, and stabbed straight at Jack's flank. Now it could already be seen that the second wave of the spiritual storm was deliberately let go of Hiyuain collapse, so that the forward commander was not on the same rhythm as everyone else. In front of him. Then the third wave, which was specifically targeted at the exoskeleton armor, swung its tail. The attack was no longer a mental storm, but a blinding lightning strike from the mental plane. Most importantly, the nozzle warning was extremely timely. Disregarding the damage to his body, he forcefully pushed it to the highest gear and spat horizontally in front of her chest. The terrifying high temperature made Giant Arm let out a muffled groan. He forcefully withdrew his strength in Hiyuain's hand, actually let out the sound of metal clashing. The edge of the knife blade didn't have any fancy tricks, just like Hiyuain's current state of mind. And there wasn't a body of flesh and blood that could block the flames of the format of fire. But whether it was Luonan or where the edge of the blade pointed, neither of them had any intentions of relaxing. It was originally a thin layer of fluctuated once more, but without the unified command of the psychic wave network, displayed its characteristic of appearing and disappearing like a ghost. In an instant. It seized the opportunity and suddenly attacked. Walker exoskeleton armor the instant when he touched the rhythm of body and soul. With the assistance of the auxiliary thrusters, it coordinated shot toward the window of the abandoned floor that led to the outside world. Siege hammer, giant arm, the human-faced arachnid the other specialization in mental attacks, but it was an impossible special method to reveal their exoskeleton armor with its thrusters. The alloy knife rang out again, and the window continued to enlarge in front of Jack. Hiyuane's body and swallowed him and released him, wasn't too serious, allowing him to be cast into the night of Siase's hammering stratum. If she wanted to adjust back, she would need at least 1 to 2 seconds. The wall at the edge of the window was bombarded by giant arms, wouldn't give her this opportunity, which was a step too late. It screeched on the mental plane, and its 6 heterochromatic eyes flashed collapsed outwards. It wanted to seize this opening and seize the greatest victory. It was a success. Have you had enough? From now on, the sky was high to watch any longer. He sent out telepathic thoughts, which was a signal. Please turn the page if this chapter is not finished. Please Jack raised his head to look at the night sky. The demonic body of the arrogant under human the blurry colors of light suddenly went his rigid. Longing and dreams vaguely transformed into a stairway to heaven, which had been glowing with an extraordinary splendor all the way to his color feet. Was thrown into chaos. Now, the flames in his heart were burning at their most intense. It saw the heavily chained crow suddenly appear on the mental plane. His interference with the mental and material planes had already reached a very high into the depths of the void. Naturally, but the other end had connected to his abdomen at an unknown time. However, the human-faced arachnid stepped out of nothingness. The human-faced arachnid had no way of understanding its current situation. The malevolent but instincts were telling it that this situation was extremely bad. It silently penetrated Jack's and its demonic body leaped into the air. Jack's consciousness of fear free from this chain that seemed both real and illusory. He was still displaying ecstasy and pride on the chain to rattle and tremble. His emotions were like corresponding information passed through the chain and was transmitted back and burned with the same bewitching demonic fire, who was on the other end, instantly covered Jack's entire body. The interior of the human-faced arachnid's under the illumination of the format of fire, it was a deep and turbid furnace of hell. Human-faced arachnid flames sprayed and the sea of fire overlapped with Jack's. The most intuitive shadow one could feel here was the high temperature. Of course, this was just a type of comprehension through the senses. Accurately capturing it was hard to imagine that a dark side of life form igniting the human-faced arachnid would contain a furnace of several tens of thousands of degrees within its charging figure suddenly froze, and the glow of his demonic that swallowed consciousness in the eyes of the pursuing ability users. It just appeared in its exoskeleton armor, the chaotic fragments of information and emotions were like overgrown weeds. It fell headfirst to the ground. They scattered along with the giant arms and crag occasionally colliding with each other to form a tiny bit of consciousness for a brief moment. Another person leaped out of the window. Screamed miserably within the sea of fire across the hell as they melted, brushing past the rapidly falling exoskeleton armor. Locked onto the spiritual seed that he had just plucked. The light of the format of fire flickered intensely as it pointed straight at the seemingly outer layer of the seed had already melted in this furnace of hell, but the human-faced arachnid when this outer layer disintegrated and digested, it was smacking its mouth to savor when the blades jumped out from within. It resonated closely with Luonan's chain, resisting the fatal flow of fire that existed everywhere. Who had been standing next to her just now and temporarily took over Hiyuane's command. The tetrahedron endured the inscribed wounded soul and the circumscribed sphere appeared clearly. It suppressed a small area with its unique structure, third contingency bit of modeled radiance time to grow. Was shaken on the mental plane when his voice rang out. The demonic modeled radiance rapidly magnified. Another hurricane that spanned the material plane and the mental plane at this very moment. Its half-arachnid, half-human body stood stooped out of habit, yet it possessed the cruel tension of pouncing on its prey at any moment. In this way, the human-faced arachnid was the manifestation of the wraith sign. It manifested within the stomach of another human-faced arachnid. Chapter 151. The furnace's inferno was extremely repulsive towards the wraith sign and outsider. Huge bubbles appeared in the sea of fire, revealing a deep magma-like structure. The flames above the sea of fire were like dancing pythons, roaring as they tried to devour the devil's sign. At this time, the furnace of hell didn't seem to be in the stomach of a darksider life form. Instead, it seemed to exist in the center of an enormous world. There was a fantastical feeling of a Mount Sumeru in a mustard seed. Faced with such an environment, the wraith sign was not in a hurry to resist or destroy. What he did was to howl at the sky. His body burned with a blood-colored flame that seemed to be solid, merging with the format pyramid on the outer layer. The unique structure of the format pyramid expanded outwards layer by layer. At the center of the furnace of inferno, lines of different densities shuttled and intersected in the ocean of fire, building one basic structure after another before they were connected into a complicated whole. This scene was so familiar, just like the magical altar in the Dashang building's fighting arena. That was right. The wraith sign had built a new altar. Previously, it was built on the turbid emotions of hundreds of spectators. Now it was built on the lava. Luonan's eyes were still groping in the dark when the last altar was constructed. He was a standard example of knowing the how, but not knowing the why. But as he came into contact with the Tower of Babel built by the Dynamo Core, and through Jack's selfless demonstration, He understood the structural rules of operating energy and information. In addition, after grasping the soul-breathing technique, he gradually realized the mysteries of the interconnection between the spiritual and the material planes. Now it seemed that he was a little enlightened. Luonan noticed that the structures of the two altars were very similar. They didn't seem to possess essential differences, especially the operating principles of the two altars. In other words, the method of handling energy and information was exactly the same. From a simple logical deduction, it could be seen that the same form was often rooted in the same content. Since the structure was like that, the basis of its existence should not change too much. Oh, in other words, the foundation behind this furnace of hell is actually similar in nature to the spectators in the arena. It's just that one manifests as a turbid flow of emotions, while the other manifests as a furnace of flames. Luonan watched with great interest. The turbid flow that is rooted in the emotions and desires of the human heart can actually develop into different forms and possess different functions. This transformation was caused by the human-faced arachnid. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Is that it, or are there other factors? Luonan observed the furnace of hell once more with questions and gains in mind. He felt it to be even more penetrating, and his understanding became even clearer. As the wraith sign continued to build the altar, the giant flame pythons that had been attacking it from the outside gradually stopped attacking it. On the other hand, in the lava below the sea of fire, the bubbles popped one after another. They were clearly distorted human faces, staring at the wraith sign with hatred, fear, and fanaticism. But no matter what, they could not stop the continuous expansion and perfection of the altar's structure. Moreover, with the arrangement of the various functional structures, the deterrence of the altar became weaker and weaker. Things were just that interesting. No matter how horrifying and tragic the scene was, when the altar was built, who was the priest, who was the sacrifice, who had the power of a ruler, and who was just a stupid pig or sheep, it would all be clearly distinguished in such a cold and cruel way. The terrifying scene of the furnace of hell continued. Perhaps it did have the powerful ability to swallow consciousness and melt souls, but just based on the level of the altar, it could not pose any threat to the wraith sign on the altar. In other words, the wraith sign had used an altar to suppress the furnace. At the same time, it was stripping away the more essential things of the inferno prison. As the altar was built, the furnace of hell was suppressed. The human-faced arachnid, pierced by the heavily chained crow, grew more and more restless. It even revealed a reaction of fear. It suddenly shrieked, broke through the air, and left in spite of everything. This kind of situation was quite similar to the day when Luonan was dragged away by the burning wraith on the warship. The problem was that although only a few days had passed, Luonan was no longer an ignorant person. Through the wraith sign, he had a deep understanding of the human-faced arachnid. He did not need to be afraid to face it head-on, let alone now that he had placed Monkey Sun in its stomach. Freeze. The heavily chained crow trembled, and the power of the format of "My Heart's a Prison" poured in. The human-faced arachnid had the altar wreaking havoc inside, and the chains were capturing it outside. In addition, it had suffered a blow from He Yuan, injuring its vitality. Its power of resistance decreased again and again. It had clearly straddled through the air, but it was actually forcefully dragged back by Luonan. This wave of noise was far too large. Not only did He Yuan, who was nearby, feel the abnormality, but the mysterious power in the distance was also terrified and shocked. His mind was scattered quite a bit. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The most direct effect was that his follow-up killing move aimed at He Yuan was cut off. She landed safely on the ground and retreated backwards. Giant Arm and Crag Burst broke through the mental suppression one after the other on the abandoned floor. The three joined together in the blink of an eye, and they retreated to where Mr. Bai was. Right now, the members of the Society's defensive circle were in a state of confusion. When the three returned, they scattered and stood apart. They formed a triangular structure around the ring-shaped defensive circle. Yuan gave a command in a deep voice. She gave everyone a clear command: reboot the hexayear. Select the local network structure. In the blink of an eye, all the members of the Society completed this step. A psychic wave local network was established. Energy and information were interconnected between the members of the various societies, forming a joint force against the outside world. According to He Yuan's distribution of authority, she, Giant Arm, and Crag Burst formed the three stable fulcrums of the local network. All energy and information had to pass through these three fulcrums to complete their work. This completely shifted the pressure of the mental storm's attack onto their bodies. Mr. Bai finally obtained a chance to breathe within the local network. He slowly recovered and relied on the deep application of the hexaear to sort out everyone's joint force. He formed a sizable flood of energy and information. It passed to Yuan and the other two and buzzed through the suppression of the mental storm. It entered the depths of the boundless night sky and connected with the true psychic wave network in the blink of an eye. The special form of energy and information opened up the Society's special authority on the psychic wave. The warning and distress signals were sent out in the first instance and were received by the Society's managers. The Xia City Ability User Society was completely activated in a short few seconds. What happened? After Luonan grabbed the human-faced arachnid, he hid himself even deeper into the mental plane to avoid the possible retaliation attack of the mysterious power. But the anticipated attack didn't come. Instead, the hexaear, which had been shielded by the mental storm, transmitted a broken message after a series of crackling noises. Members? Confirmed. Interference source. Attack authorization unlocked. All members prepare to attack. In the next moment, the sky of Xia City seemed to light up. The Mid-Autumn Festival is approaching. There are many things to worry about. Please allow me to be lazy. There will be more at around 12 o'clock. Chapter 152. Approximately 1,500 meters away from the abandoned floor where Yuan and the others had besieged Jack, there was a group of high-rise buildings. Looking down from here, one could see the abandoned floor and the surrounding area. This was the sniper position that Yuan had pointed out. It was also the area where Ink was active. At the beginning of the mental storm, this rather intelligent crow hid obediently under a clock tower of a high-rise building. It arched its wings, buried its head, and remained motionless. That's right, the area of attack of the mental storm was 1,500 meters away. It had nothing to do with Ink. But the problem was that the distance between the person who unleashed the mental storm and Ink was far too close. They were separated by a large clock, nothing more. Above the cowering crow, at the top of the clock tower, the turbid black smoke converged into a faintly discernible shadow. It blended perfectly into the darkness of the night. Only the shape of its eyes, which were like weak sparks, carried a hint of a person within this mass of black smoke. Such an image was like a ghost, like a demon. It was terrifying to the soul. It was just that compared to the awe-inspiring might of the 3 consecutive waves of powerful mental attacks, the smoke man right now had a vexed and depressed mood. The human-faced arachnid should have left after eating, but it only made 2 more moves. This is 2F** king against the rules. The smoke man could feel that the psychic wave network that covered this area was in the process of being activated. It allowed the power of the controller of the psychic wave network to be fully transmitted over. Through the guidance of the ability users on the abandoned floor, a tyrannical attack spanning several hundred kilometers could be realized. If he had the chance, he would be very happy to go to the entrance of the Wilderness Explorers Society of Xia City and curse at Ouyang Chen's shameless behavior. But it was too late to say anything at this time. Actually, if he had disregarded everything and fled with all his might at the first moment he sensed the human-faced arachnid, there was still a chance. But the troublesome human-faced arachnid that had hunted for food was the greatest hope for the Order to nurture a sacrificial vessel. He could not abandon it no matter what. That damn chain. Break for me. The smoke man had truly thrown caution to the wind. He withstood the increasingly terrifying spiritual pressure of this area. He forcefully separated a portion of the turbid smoke from his black smoke soul body and tossed it into the air. The smoke conducted a transformation on the mental plane and the material plane. It quickly tempered into a sharp edge. By the time the human-faced arachnid was locked in place by the chains, the smoke had already transformed into a swift and fierce ray of light. It chopped downwards. This turbid fire saber not only had to cut through the chains, but it also had to cut through the chains. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Only those shameless people hiding in the depths of the mental plane could vent the anger in his heart. Who would have thought that this saber strike, which was filled with his anger and hatred, would slash empty air? The heavily chained crow disappeared into thin air, its whereabouts unknown. On the other hand, the human-faced arachnid had inexplicably recovered its freedom. It was still frozen in place and its malevolent face looked incredibly stupid. This blood flame blessing. When his life was at stake, how could this smoke man have time to think? At this time, the abandoned floor was lit up on its own. The activated psychic wave network was about to materialize. The energy being transmitted was increasing, and it had already locked onto him. If he didn't escape now, he wouldn't have to waste any more effort. Go, go, go. He used a special method of control to give the human-faced arachnid an order to make it flee in a different direction. He hadn't forgotten what this group of people from the Ability User Society had been doing in Xia City for the past 2 days. If it wasn't for his several rounds of mental storms attracting hatred, this fellow would have been the #1 target of the Ability User Society's attack. Under his urging, the human-faced arachnid's 6 heterochromatic pupils finally recovered a bit of luster. It immediately leaped into the air and disappeared. The smoke man leaped out of the clock tower at nearly the same time. He flew towards the area where he could sense the most human traffic. He hoped to find a few human meat shields so that Ouyang Chen would have some fear. However, he was still a bit too late in the end. The instant the smoke man leaped out of the clock tower, a terrifying energy attack burst forth from the abandoned floor 1,500 meters away. In the next moment, a mental storm descended. This was absolutely revenge. It was also a mental storm, but this attack originated from Ouyang Chen. Even though it had lost many of its subtleties due to the long-distance transmission and guidance, when the hurricane swept over, it still caused the smoke soul body to fall into a predicament where it could not avoid. In a few breaths of time, the black smoke soul body, which was the soul of the out-of-body state, was torn to pieces. The soul of the black smoke man was directly exposed to the air, and was swept by the tail of the storm that blew past, almost causing his soul to scatter. In the end, his strength was strong and he had long since passed the naive age where his soul couldn't be exposed to the wind. He flew and descended all the way until he entered a certain nightclub in this group of buildings. Only in this noisy and chaotic atmosphere did he truly believe that he had escaped this calamity. Today's grazing was truly a huge failure. Ouyang Chen, this grudge has been formed. The smoke man was venting his anger as he sucked in a bit of people from the nightclub. He condensed a layer of darkness once more. Please turn the page if this chapter is not finished. The smoke soul body was temporarily coping. He was certain that he wouldn't die, so he began to worry about the human-faced arachnid situation. He sensed that the human-faced arachnid wasn't too far away from this area. It was still cruising in the outskirts. This was a bit dangerous. Oh, it had found its way here. The smoke man was actually somewhat gratified for a time. He had obtained this control method from another order. Even though its origins were unknown, the effects were quite good. If it wasn't like this, it would have been impossible to tame the human-faced arachnid to this degree within a short few days. The nightclub he was in was mostly filled with young men and women who had played all night. Emotions were born and turbid energy flowed everywhere. It was also a good place to hide the human-faced arachnid. Right now, the group of people from the Ability User Society would certainly not spare him. They would search everywhere for traces of the human-faced arachnid. His current strength was greatly damaged, so he had to first recover a bit of his vitality. At the same time, he had the people of the Order come over to receive him in order to ensure his safety. As he was pondering, the human-faced arachnid noiselessly pierced through this space and stopped by his side. Its appearance was malevolent and terrifying, but its 3 severed limbs made it appear to be in a rather sorry state. I don't know if the meal I just ate can make up for the vitality that this blade chopped off. It hadn't even been 2 days since the smoke man took over the human-faced arachnid. He still didn't understand the habits of this dark-sider life form too well. He made wild guesses for a time and was rather at a loss. He also observed even more carefully. Oh, the flames under the body of the human-faced arachnid were bright and translucent. They circulated with laws and rules. Could it be that the meal just now had already begun to digest? Right when he was sizing up the arachnid with interest, he saw a beam of light shoot out from the back of the human-faced arachnid. It tore open the back of the human-faced arachnid. The smoke man was stunned. The moment the beam of light came out, it was unstoppable. The light of fire exploded from every part of the human-faced arachnid's body. It was like thousands of sharp knives slicing and slicing. The human-faced arachnid could only struggle futilely. Then tongues of fire leaped out, burning its entire body. It burned into nothingness in the blink of an eye. The smoke man's mind was stupefied for a time as he observed this scene. It was completely blank. But then the raging flames of the fire burned the human-faced arachnid to death. Unexpectedly, they did not disperse. Instead, they converged inwards to form a maelstrom in the void. A boom rang out from within and a malevolent and terrifying demon rode the light of fire. It soared out from within the maelstrom. Its 6 eyes were of a different color and its 8 legs were spread out. If it wasn't the human-faced arachnid, then who could it be? I wrote this chapter until 4 in the morning. Exactly 6 hours. I'm also drunk. I can only postpone the morning. I've temporarily finished paying off the subscriptions and chapters. Today I'll start paying off the monthly passes and chapters. Chapter 153. After the human-faced arachnid reappeared, it didn't make any movements. It just used its demonic 6 pupils to stare coldly at this fellow who was on the same level as it. The smoke man felt like he was having a nightmare. In the dream it was the end of the world. When he woke up from the dream, everything returned to normal. He circled around the human-faced arachnid many times. He could see that the human-faced arachnid had undergone some changes before and after being burned by the raging flames. The most straightforward change was that the limb that Yuan had chopped off had now grown back. The human-faced arachnid had the ability to rise from the ashes? Even if the smoke man's brain spun 300 times, he still wouldn't be able to think of something as bizarre and absurd as, a human-faced arachnid is hiding inside the belly of a human-faced arachnid. He only knew that nothing could happen to the human-faced arachnid in the hands of the Order. This was the key to the continued existence of the Blood Flame Order in the foreseeable future. The smoke man adjusted his emotions. He also adjusted the way his consciousness operated his energy and information, causing it to connect with the human-faced arachnid. The human-faced arachnid didn't resist and so on. Soon, his consciousness cut into the deeper regions of the human-faced arachnid. He saw the terrifying scene of a furnace of flames. The smoke man heaved a sigh of relief. In the teachings of the Blood Flame Order he belonged to, the great blood flame was hidden deep within every person's anger, hatred, despair, and other intense emotions. It did not have a concrete form, nor did it have a clear self-consciousness. However, it possessed a powerful, terrifying, and absolute power, as well as a restless and unrestrained principle of operation. Therefore, after the Order obtained this human-faced arachnid, they projected the Order's most classic meditation environment here. They used it as a foundation to construct the basic structure of the future sacrificial vessel. Nothing seemed to have changed, but further verification was needed. The smoke man's consciousness continued to penetrate deeper, and soon a special voice was transmitted all the way from the depths of the sea of fire and magma. Blood, blood, blood. Fire, fire, fire. The monotonous and crazed shouts converged into a roar that made people anxious. But to this smoke man, it was instead very cordial and even more at ease. This was the prayer of the low-level believers of the Order. Naturally, the sound of a true prayer was much more complex. However, it was impossible to completely restore the structure of the human-faced arachnid. It could only be roughly categorized. The blood type was often related to hatred and resentment, while the fire type was more likely to seek excitement. From these cries of prayer, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. He knew that the blood-soul temple structure that the Order had implanted still existed. The foundation hadn't been lost and everything was fine. Through the blood-soul temple, he contacted the church. Soon, a deep and firm will gave him a response. "I'm here." Facing the officiator, the smoke man was completely relaxed. "Your Excellency, something happened in that matter before?" In fact, the officiator was fully aware of the hunt this time. When the smoke man accompanied the human-faced arachnid to hunt for food, he discovered that the target that had caused the human-faced arachnid to become restless was Jack. At the time, the smoke man couldn't make a good judgment. He discussed with the first ablatum and obtained permission before chasing after Jack to hunt. However, it was difficult for the officiator to predict what would happen next. After listening to the brief report, the officiant was not too surprised. He only said, "Amoluan, is our mold damaged?" The so-called mold referred to the human-faced arachnid. The smoke man was Amoluan. Fragments of the human-faced arachnid's rebirth from the ashes flashed through his mind. However, this matter was too complicated to explain. He just picked out the key points and gave a simple response. "No, it hasn't. It seems to have improved a bit." "It is indeed so. I can feel a sort of spiritual pressure here that I have never felt before. The order of the environment and the sense of hierarchy are also increasing. Even though order has never been the hobby of the mighty blood flame will, the path leading to it must always be divided into a distance and a height." "It is as you said." Amoluan's mood calmed down. "The 40-year founding ceremony of the Order is at hand. For the sake of restoring the Order's glory, our actions are bound to be fraught with danger and risk. This is encouraged by the blood flame will. It is fine as long as the ultimate goal is achieved." The officiator calmly arranged, "There is already a soul envoy at your grazing location. I will send another one and a means of transportation. Your current mission is to escape the eye of the storm as soon as possible and bring our mold back safely." "As you wish, Your Excellency." Amoluan cut off the communication. His consciousness wandered into the depths of the Inferno prison. He was inexplicably lost in thought. It had already been 40 years. 40 years ago, when the Third World War was at its peak, the first officiator of the Blood Flame Order felt the mighty blood flame will amidst the despair of war. His ability was awakened, and he established the Blood Flame Order on the battlefield. It was one of the earliest modern secret orders in the world that could be verified. Mo Luan was one of the founding elders of the order. At the time he was only 20 years old. This chapter is not yet complete. Please turn the page. He was a new recruit who had just stepped onto the battlefield. He obtained endless pleasure from the power of slaughter bestowed upon him by the blood flame. The rapid development of the order allowed him to obtain achievements that he had never dreamed of in his youth. As an old secret order, the blood flame had once had astonishing glory. Their followers covered nearly 2/3 of the world's major cities. They were one of the few world-class orders back then. However, good times did not last long. The overly intense and extreme teachings lost their vitality after losing the support of war and the environment of crisis. The order rapidly declined after the war, and the successive large changes in teachings, internal divisions, external affiliations, and other unforeseen events cut this powerful power into pieces. The branch that Mo Luan belonged to could only withdraw into the region of Xia City. He relied on the impressive combat strength of the upper echelons to barely maintain the face of a secret order. And in the many years of change, the most important tool to realize the communication between the blood flame will and the lower echelons of believers, the order's sacrificial vessel, was unfortunately destroyed. This gave the order a heavy blow. The powerful sacrificial vessel was the pride of the blood flame order. It was the important inherited artifact that distinguished them from the wild fox order and the wild chicken order. It was precisely because of the sacrificial vessel that the lower echelons of the order possessed a regular channel of direct communication with the mighty blood flame will. They possessed the true feedback of divine ability manifestation and interference with reality. It was the best way to unite the hearts of the people and nurture the younger generation. Losing the sacrificial vessel was undoubtedly a fatal blow to an order that had established itself upon extraordinary strength. It was also a bitter humiliation. Nowadays their order was the same as those wild chicken orders. Every sacrificial activity, no matter how big or small, required the officiant to undertake and guide it. They used an artificial method to communicate with the blood flame will. The consumption was enormous. There were many restrictions and it was hard for people to be convinced. It became the greatest bottleneck that restricted the order's recovery and development. Mo Luan had already had enough of these cursed days. He had experienced the most glorious period of the order. Because of this, he was particularly unable to endure the current state of decline. Now, the order had paid an enormous price from top to bottom in order to obtain a new method to obtain the sacrificial vessel. The human-faced arachnid was the crux of the crux. It absolutely could not be lost. Mighty blood flame will, I beseech you for your blessing. His consciousness completed a simple prayer within the furnace of hell. He was able to feel a response from a certain hazy will that came from the depths of the unseen void. Moreover, it was a clear response that was rarely seen in recent years. It was like a true deity looking down from high above. Chapter 154. Mo Luan needed to make a correction as soon as this thought was born. Forgive my stupidity. The basic teachings of the Blood Flame Order did not recognize the existence of personified gods in the world. They believed that the Blood Flame will existed within all personalities. Under certain conditions, the Blood Flame would form dominance over all higher conscious life forms. As for the nature of the Blood Flame will, it was explained as the extreme side of nature. It was the pinnacle of power that could only be reached through the extreme paths of blood and fire. It was very difficult for such teachings to gain favor in the context of the modern world. Because of this, the Order had carried out many revisions to its teachings over the course of several decades. It had also buried the seeds of a great split and a great collapse. Mo Luan was an elder of the Order. He himself was more inclined towards the traditional teachings. He viewed the Blood Flame will as a guide towards the pursuit of eternal power. He believed more in self-will and pursuit than in deference and humility. But it was impossible to not be disturbed and influenced by the chaos of several decades. He attributed the weak thoughts he had just had to a moment of confusion and foolishness. He did his best to gather his mind and forget his thoughts just now. He carefully sensed what the first ablatum had just said. It was the feeling of layers within the furnace of hell. Sure enough, he discovered after paying attention that there was indeed a subtle difference in the current inferno compared to the blindly violent environment of before. Especially in the cries of blood and fire from the believers, there was already a subtle difference. Some fanatical and resolute voices were clearly clearer within the inferno. They aroused even more echoes. This clear feedback was enough to prove that the construction of the Order's sacrificial vessel had indeed begun to take an embryonic form. Mo Luan felt that tonight's hard work was worth it. His consciousness separated from the human-faced arachnid. His state of mind settled as he calmly waited for the arrival of the soul envoy. The human-faced arachnid stopped in the void next to Mo Luan. It was just as quiet, at least on the surface. Is this a dove occupying a magpie's nest? Or is it just wishful thinking? Luo Nan had truly watched a play in the past few minutes. He had gained new knowledge. Then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What rebirth from the flames? It was just the Wraith sign reappearing after devouring its own kind. The altar constructed by the Wraith sign was a battlefield for its own kind to devour each other. The human-faced arachnid, who came from the same source, simply had no chance of refusing the altar. Then, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was only natural that the experienced Wraith sign, who had the home advantage, easily won. This human-faced arachnid of the Blood Flame Order had been nourished by the Blood Flame summons of the Order's believers and the Blood Soul Temple's construction, but its core essence was limited in terms of growth and strength. There was a considerable disparity between it and the Wraith sign, which had been tempered and upgraded by Rue-1. After the Wraith sign swallowed Jack's spiritual seed first, the gap between them widened even further. It was only natural for it to fail. This once again confirmed that the human-faced arachnid was a Darksider life form. It was unable to increase in strength through its own accumulation. It was unable to increase in strength through low-level food. The Blood Flame Order's method of grazing was actually correct. However, it was very unfortunate that they encountered the Wraith sign, who was essentially on a different level from the other faced arachnid avatars. After swallowing Jack's spiritual seed, Luo Nan felt that the Wraith sign might have already surpassed the Wraith sign he encountered at the Limestone Water Village pub. At the very least, the Wraith sign wasn't at a disadvantage. However, this Blood Flame Order was a bit outside of his expectations. Luo Nan didn't want to have any contact with this order. He didn't face it head-on when Mo Luan attacked the heavily chained crow. In any case, the altar constructed by the Wraith sign had already taken control of the situation. Everyone split up and left, never to meet again. However, he never expected that the Wraith sign would defeat its fellow human-faced arachnid and that the Wraith sign would be busy receiving the fruits of victory. The remnant method of driving the human-faced arachnid's body would bring it back to the side of this mysterious power. The furnace of hell within the human-faced arachnid had already been completely incorporated into the framework of the altar. It was just that the Wraith sign didn't have the time to retract it. Mo Luan was completely unaware of this. He used the format of pure consciousness to communicate, sense, pray and ponder. All of the energy and information circulated without the slightest bit of concealment. It was the same as displaying all of his secrets in one go. He wasn't much inferior to Jack. Grasping another person's secrets was very refreshing, but it was inevitable that he would burn his brain as to how to leave. He couldn't really let the Wraith sign follow him back to be some sacrificial vessel. At this time, He Yuan's call cut in on the psychic wave network, which had just recovered normal communications. "Scout, are you okay?" I'm fine." Luo Nan's soul body floated in the air to observe. He saw He Yuan's tightly knitted brows as she communicated with him. Her brows relaxed after receiving a response. Luo Nan felt pretty good. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Actually, aside from the Wraith Sign's current dilemma, Luo Nan's current state wasn't just good. It was very good. It wasn't just good, it was great. He had borne the burden of another sacrificial activity. He had won with the Wraith Sign, who had a close connection with him. The direct benefits for Luo Nan far surpassed what happened to Rui Wen. Of course, this didn't include soul breathing. In terms of the most intuitive range of mental senses, Luo Nan's range of senses began to rapidly recover the moment the mental storm stopped. The specific data had expanded by roughly 50 to 60%. The radius of his senses had nearly reached 800 meters. The expansion of the range of his senses proved that the amount of energy and information Luo Nan could control had increased by a large margin. His precision had increased as well. After his abilities increased, he always had a bit of a desire to show off. The society's hunt for the human-faced arachnid was probably about to begin. Luo Nan really was a bit eager to give it a try. What a joke. He was thinking whether or not he could borrow the society's hand to create an opportunity for the Wraith Sign to escape. Who knew that He Yuan's next words would be, "The operation is over. Return immediately." You're not chasing? Chasing? Chasing who? The one who plotted against you. The one who interfered with the communications of the psychic wave network. Luo Nan really wanted to lead the society's power towards Mo Luan. His words were not without a hint of encouragement. He Yuan was silent for a moment. Then she suddenly gestured to Giant Arm, Crag Burst, and the others beside her. At the same time, her voice suddenly turned soft and gentle. It was as if she was afraid of alarming the enemy. "You saw him? Don't move no matter what. This person's strength is extremely powerful. Right now you're just a crow. Don't think about anything else. Let him go." Hold on. That person has already left. But he should still be in this group of buildings. Aren't we going to chase him? He Yuan was startled. She gestured to Giant Arm and the others, who were already preparing to move, to stop. Her voice immediately returned to normal. She said resolutely and decisively, "You return immediately. Our mission for today is over." But Luo Nan didn't know what to say for a time. Of course he could see that He Yuan's series of changes were all for the sake of his safety. But what about the Wraith Sign on Mo Luan's side? Today is only the third watch. Tomorrow will be the same. The year is afraid of mid-autumn and the moon is afraid of the middle of the night. I'll adjust my tempo to the fourth watch as soon as possible when I recover next week. Please forgive me. Chapter 155. Mr. Luo. He Yuan changed the way she addressed Luo Nan, further indicating the end of the operation. She explained to Luo Nan, different mission objectives require different mission arrangements. They also require different executors. We are dealing with Jack's team. We are not suited to deal with the human-faced arachnid and the expert behind it. At the same time, the association has more or less locked on to the identity of the other party and will take follow-up measures to deal with it. But not at the moment. Luo Nan also knew that he shouldn't put his companions in danger for his own selfishness. He absolutely couldn't reveal the existence of the Wraith Sign to the outside world. In the end, he still needed to think of a way himself. Got it? I'll be right back. Luo Nan confirmed that Mo Luan wouldn't leave for a while, so he ordered Ink to return. Who would have thought that He Yuan's next words would be, "Mr. Bai is here, just in time to check on the situation of your soul attachment." Luo Nan nearly let Ink knock its head against the clock tower. He Yuan had mentioned Mr. Bai back in the fighting arena. Luo Nan hadn't paid much attention to it, but now the feeling was different. Don't look at how passive Mr. White was when he faced Mo Luan. However, on the mental plane, his light muslin and misty infiltration method was extremely exquisite. Ink's situation couldn't be hidden from others. It wouldn't be a big deal if his soul-leaving body was exposed, but after going through so much trouble for so long, it would still be awkward if it was exposed again. Luo Nan really didn't have a good solution. He could only take it one step at a time. As they spoke, He Yuan and the others began to clean up the battlefield. Although the process was a bit tortuous, the people who participated in the operation all escaped unscathed, and the atmosphere was still relatively relaxed. The injured and unconscious Rui Wen had already been carried into the prepared battlefield ambulance and given emergency treatment to reduce radiation damage. On the other side, Jack's body was also moved back. A group of people gathered around to study it. It was said to be a corpse, but it was actually the Deep Blue Walker's exoskeleton armor. At this moment, whether it was inside or outside, it was a mess. All sorts of remnants of human tissues and destroyed spare parts could be seen. It felt like a pile of garbage. It was impossible to see the might he'd displayed when he'd fought Cragburst and Giant Arm. At this moment, the sound of flapping wings could be heard. Ink flapped its wings and entered through the window of the abandoned building. Compared to its own kind, its enormous size and astonishing speed were rather eye-catching, attracting the attention of the people who were cleaning up the battlefield. Mr. Bai, who had been recuperating, raised his head. He didn't say anything, but his smoke-like will spread out from the depths of the void. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Locked onto Crow. Luo Nan hurriedly let Ink descend to the ground where Mr. Bai was sitting. At the same time he greeted through the hex ear, "Hello Mr. Bai. I've troubled you." He felt like he was a patient seeking treatment, and Mr. Bai was the highly skilled doctor. Mr. White grinned. This little old man, who was famous for his dream technique, was always in a slack and sleepy state. He sat on the ground with his back bent as if he could fall asleep at any time. However, under Mr. White's half-lidded eyelids, his eyes were extremely bright. Along with the smoke that filled the air in the spiritual plane, he covered Ink's body. Very quickly he let out an "oh." Yuan and Cragburst had walked over even earlier, but they maintained a certain distance in order to avoid disturbing Mr. White's observations. Cragburst was the first to make the judgment of spiritual attachment when he saw Mr. White's reaction. He couldn't help but ask, "How is it? Is it spirit attachment or soul attachment?" "I can't tell for now." Mr. White was quite frank, but he immediately praised, "It's a bit different from what I thought before. Little Luo's way of doing things is quite reasonable. His methods are cautious and strict. He has his own standards. Not bad, not bad." Luo Nan didn't hide anything. In the eyes of an ability user of Mr. White's level, it was impossible for him to miss the faint radiance of the diagram structure under the cover of the crow's black feathers as long as he paid careful attention. Yuan and Cragburst also discovered this situation one after the other. Yuan hesitated for a moment before saying, "Format? Thank you for swallowing the archetype." Luo Nan secretly sighed with emotion. Yen Hong's archetype formatting theory was indeed deeply ingrained in burners, including ability users. It wasn't something that could be reversed in a short amount of time. Cragburst scratched his head. "I don't think this diagram was there in the beginning, but I did see it when I was rushing over here." Luo Nan rushed to explain, "I just realized it not too long ago. It's mainly for adjusting my state." Yuan set the tone with a single sentence, "Is there any danger? Common sense says that the more there is a method, the lower the risk. But we can't make a conclusion lightly." Mr. Bai stood up as he spoke, "How about this? The matters here are more or less settled. I'll make a trip to the hospital with little Luo since I have nothing better to do. I'll give it a try and take a look. It's better than anything else." Yuan said, "That would be best. I'll arrange a car." Don't be fooled by Mr. Bai's slack and sloppy appearance. Once he took action, he was truly swift and decisive. And he did it in a straightforward manner. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Luo Nan didn't have the time to express too much before he was brought onto the flying car that headed towards Xia City's Renai Hospital. Luo Nan didn't really care about anything else. The only thing that worried him was the distance between him and the Wraith sign. Luckily, the connection between the two was still stable and secretive up to this point. Mr. Bai asked Luo Nan many questions along the way. The main questions were about how to establish a relationship with the crow, how to control it, and so on. Luo Nan saw that there was a way, so he took the initiative to talk about the origin of ink. He spoke half-truths and half-lies. "I sensed ink at the time and locked onto it. Then I felt like my soul had left my body. This was an ambush for the possibility of him being exposed later on." However, Mr. Bai clearly didn't think that much. He laughed out loud when he heard Luo Nan's words, "Out-of-body state? Young man, don't bite off more than you can chew. You still haven't awakened. Even if you can go out for a short while, you'll be blown apart in the blink of an eye. That'll be the scattering of your soul. There's no saving you. Is that dangerous? From ancient times until now, the price has been disastrous." Mr. Bai shook his head and sighed. In the old ancestors' world, the out-of-body state is also called summoning the Yin soul. There are quite a few taboos. Those who do it rashly don't have a good ending. Since you have this sort of feeling, There's no harm in reading the Taoist books that the society has organized and revised. It's good to be able to use them as reference. I remember now. Luonan finally understood why Crag burst, He Yuan, and Mr. Bai didn't think about the out-of-body state. This was because they all considered things from common sense. They absolutely never imagined that Luonan would have an external fuel tank like the Wraith sign by his side. It could provide long periods of endurance. While Luonan and Mr. Bai were conversing, Luonan's soul body relied on its ghostly speed to arrive at Xia City's Renai Hospital half a step ahead. Wanting to rely on this Crow Inc. to recover Luonan's senses was undoubtedly like trying to fish from a tree. Luonan needed to first resolve this problem in order to avoid awkwardness when the time came. Luonan relied on his subtle connection with his main body. He didn't need to deliberately sense it. His mind stirred and his soul returned to his main body. At this moment, the mental plane and the material plane converged. It was like a stone being thrown down from a high place. It vibrated with a bang, bringing out circle after circle of ripples. Luonan opened his eyes amidst these ripples that penetrated his body. He gazed at the monotonous patterned ceiling of the hospital and grinned, but then his expression froze. Luonan felt a sharp pain between his eyebrows in an instant. A small hole had split open on the thin layer of skin in front of his forehead. Blood seeped out from within. Chapter 156. Luonan didn't dare to move at all. His entire body was as stiff as a block of wood. But even this wasn't enough. It wasn't just his forehead. His scalp, cheeks, shoulders, and many other parts of his body felt like his muscles were being torn apart. Furthermore, the pain was still spreading. It was as if his body had suddenly turned into a thin bag filled with razor blades. Any slight movement would cause thousands of blades to pierce through his body. His soul and body were in serious disharmony. Luonan's insight and knowledge had greatly improved. He was able to grasp the root of the illness in an instant. He had once heard He Yuan mention the serious problem of the imbalance between the mind and the body, but it was only a conceptual understanding. Now he had finally experienced it for himself. Originally, his soul and physical body came from the same source and fused into one. Their energy and information were interlinked and operated in sync. Naturally, there was a relatively harmonious rhythm. Even if there was something out of line, it was still within the range of adjustment. However, Luonan's soul strength had received 2 consecutive benefits from the sacrificial offering in a single night. His soul strength had grown substantially, and he had also comprehended the mysteries of soul breathing. The corresponding changes in the operating form of energy and information were practically revolutionary. After his soul and body became one, this transformation was quickly reflected in his body. An increase in soul strength was a good thing, and soul breathing was an even better thing. It represented Luonan's current highest achievement in the mutual interference of the mental and material planes, the circulation and utilization of energy and information. The problem was that the material foundation of the soul and the fleshly body was ultimately different. From the display of the Dynamo Core's Tower of Babel, it could be seen that the soul was more or less a composition structure of energy and information. As long as the basic structure operated well, no matter how complicated the adjustments were, it could often be done with a single thought. However, the physical body was limited to basic physical properties. The various functional systems and organs had different carrying capacities and tolerances. The transmission of energy and information also required the action of a variety of chemical substances, which involved an extremely complex integrated system. Luonan started with the nervous system. He used various nerve drugs, walking on the line between life and death. He used a full 5 years of time before he was able to adjust the structure of his body to the requirements of the format of "My Heart's a Prison." How was it possible for him to keep up with the new rhythm of soul breathing within a second? Only by comparison could one see the disparity. At this time, one could see the heaven-defying nature of Rue Wen's body. He didn't look particularly strong, but he was able to keep up with the changes in the rhythm of his soul. No matter how extreme the situation was, he was able to withstand it. This was already far beyond that of an ordinary person. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. The category of such functions. There was no point in being envious. That attack just now had only torn his muscles. Luonan should be rejoicing. If there was a problem with his fragile and sensitive nervous system or endocrine system, his body system might shut down on the spot, or he might experience some unpredictable developmental changes. There was no point in rejoicing. If this situation were to continue, then Luonan's worries would have an extremely high probability of occurring. "Hey Xiao Luo, are you distracted?" Mr. Bai's voice was transmitted through the hexa ear, making Luonan remember that he was still following Mr. Bai to the hospital. He could already see the building of the hospital at this time. Luonan gave up on the headache-inducing matter for now. He used an excuse he had already thought of to deal with it. My main body seems to be reacting. This is very good. Mr. White was a bit surprised, but he was also very happy. This means that the connection between your soul and your body is very close. Many problems can be eliminated. Come, let's strike while the iron is hot. As he spoke, Mr. White opened the car window and signaled for ink to fly out. Go back to your original body and see if you can do it. I contacted the association in the hospital and got a temporary identity. It would be easier for me to communicate with them later. Let's keep in touch. These words were in line with Luonan's intentions. He immediately gave a word of thanks to Mr. Bai and urged Ink to flap its wings to fly in the direction of the hospital. Ink accurately found Luonan's room and stopped outside the window. 2 seconds passed before it reported the good news to Mr. Bai. There are no problems on my side. In this way the entire play was done perfectly and flawlessly. If one ignored the huge problem of the imbalance between body and soul. Mr. Bai also laughed out loud. It's best if it was a false alarm. Right now it's the latter half of the night. Take a rest first and catch your breath. We'll meet again during the morning ward rounds. Call me Professor Bai at that time. Luonan actually wanted to consult this authority on soul studies about the problem of the imbalance between body and soul. But the play had already been played to this degree. Some words were really hard to grasp. In the end he was used to being introverted. After a moment of hesitation, his telepathic thoughts automatically responded, "Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bai." The communication between the two was cut off for the time being. Luonan spoke with He Yuan and Cragburst, telling them to be at ease. After a round of notifications, Luonan shifted his attention back to his own body. The tearing sensation of his muscles spreading a step further. This was a concrete sensation. It was hard to say what the state of his internal organs were like without pain nerves. Luonan sighed. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. He took a breath. He needed to be careful with this sort of movement. If he made a mistake he might tear again. This was definitely not good. It wasn't paralysis. It was even worse than paralysis. What in the world was that hesitation just now? Luonan felt that he had done something stupid. In the end he wasn't a true idiot who wouldn't turn back until he hit the wall. He knew that he absolutely couldn't afford to be stupid in this sort of matter. He immediately tried to contact Mr. Bai again. But at this time, the Wraith Sign's message came back from a nightclub several dozen kilometers away. The situation there had changed. Mo Luan of the Blood Flame Order had made the motion of controlling the human-faced arachnid. This human-faced arachnid wasn't the human-faced arachnid. The Blood Flame Order's method of controlling the human-faced arachnid was now only an empty shell. It was a bit difficult for the Wraith Sign, who lacked intelligence, to understand Mo Luan's intentions. Luonan sighed once more. His soul left his body, temporarily breaking away from the bindings of his fleshly body. He responded to the changes in the situation over there with all his strength. Luonan had a general understanding of the situation over there through the Wraith Sign. The reason why Mo Luan wanted to control the human-faced arachnid was because 2 soul envoys had arrived. Mo Luan didn't know that the Ability User Society didn't have any intentions of continuing to chase and kill him for now. They were still proceeding strictly according to the Order's evacuation plan. The so-called soul envoys looked like a young man and woman who loved to play around. They were no different from the majority of the people still lingering in the nightclub. However, when the man and woman entered the room where Mo Luan and the human-faced arachnid were, they immediately knelt to the ground after confirming the location, even though they couldn't see the scene on the mental plane. They silently prayed. Their bodies inexplicably swayed during the process of praying. They became dizzy and then they fell one after another, losing all consciousness. Luonan could clearly see that all of their conscious activities had vanished from the moment they lost consciousness. Right now the man and woman on the ground were simply 2 empty shells of fleshly bodies. Or perhaps it could be said that they were vessels. Mo Luan's intentions were already as clear as day now. Sure enough, Mo Luan controlled the Wraith Sign next. He wanted it to enter the body of the female soul envoys, borrowing the aura of life to conceal itself to the greatest degree. As for Mo Luan himself, he threw himself into the fleshly body of the male soul envoys without the slightest trace of politeness. Though the male soul envoys was in a state of unconsciousness, his body still shook violently. He nearly fell limply to the ground. A thin bloody wound had split open on his temple, and the surrounding blood vessels throbbed. It's the third watch today and the second watch after that. By the time I get back from the county, it'll be evening. Chapter 157. It was as if Luo Nan was looking at a reenactment of the difficult problem he had encountered in the past. Judging from the current situation, it was clear that the soul envoy's body couldn't bear the infusion of Mo Luan's soul energy and was damaged. How would Mo Luan solve this problem? In the event of an accident, he couldn't command the soul envoy who could be cut into pieces at any time to fight, could he? With the Wraith sign acting as a fulcrum and cover, Luo Nan opened his God perspective to conduct a comprehensive observation of Mo Luan. Mo Luan was completely unaware of this. He adjusted step by step, allowing the soul envoy to gradually adapt to the infusion of soul power. Luo Nan had already exposed his method of operating energy and information back at the Wraith sign. Luo Nan observed and guessed, and he was able to figure out most of Luo Nan's steps. Is that so? Luo Nan was like an apprentice. He followed the movements of his instructor and began to try them out. The first is self-limitation. He adjusted the rhythm of his soul's breathing and slowed down the speed and efficiency of his energy and information circulation. He even intentionally blocked some of them to reduce the enormous pressure on his body. The range of Luo Nan's mental senses began to greatly shrink. From a radius of 800 meters, it shrunk all the way to less than 10 meters. At this point, it was only about 1% of the soul's spiritual senses. No matter what, it couldn't shrink any further. This was the bottom line for maintaining the soul's current configuration and rhythm. It was a basic unit. But even so, it was nearly twice as large as the 5-meter radius yesterday morning, and the information processing pressure was still not small. This was the second step, keeping a distance. Luo Nan followed Mo Luan's method and let his soul lean into the depths of the mental plane. He maintained a state that was neither close nor distant from his fleshly body. Well, it was like he was dreaming. Mo Luan had used this method to reduce the pressure on the spirit envoy's body. However, the biggest problem was that the information exchange between the material and the spiritual plane was somewhat stagnant, which affected the secretion of some neurotransmitters. His mind was in a trance, similar to sleepwalking or even taking drugs. In the end, this was only a temporary measure, and it wasn't a permanent solution. Luo Nan was a bit disappointed. But in any case, this method helped him extricate himself from his awkward state of paralysis. After Mo Luan completed the sending soul, he did not rush to leave the nightclub. Instead, he took the magic talisman out of the box and wandered around the nightclub. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. He walked around, adjusting the soul attachment form to the best state. Luo Nan temporarily lost the value of observation and his mind flowed back. He could not help but yawn, nearly falling asleep. He didn't want to use sleep to scare people anymore, so he suppressed his sleepiness and sat up on the bed unsteadily. Faint sunlight shone through the curtains into the room. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was morning. Luo Nan thought about the twists and turns and chaos of the first half of the night and the flow of time during this time. The stark contrast between before and after made Luo Nan feel rather emotional for a time. He took another deep breath, but when he was halfway through, the itchiness in his throat suddenly exploded, and the airflow diverged, choking him to death. He coughed repeatedly and almost couldn't breathe. At this moment, the communicator at the head of the bed rang on its own, and his aunt's extremely surprised voice came through. Nan, you're awake. He wanted to greet his aunt, but his violent cough made it impossible for Luo Nan to open his mouth. He could only force himself to raise his hand in response. The intensive care unit that Luo Nan was in was specially arranged by the society through the hospital. It was monitored 24 hours a day and it was equipped with both professional and robotic care. Actually, the basic purpose was to refuse the company of his family, to make room for the following operations. Because of the hospital's regulations, Mrs. Luo Shuqing could only use online video to check on Luo Nan's current situation. She never expected to see Luo Nan turn over and sit up the first time she checked on him in the early morning. This was a pleasant surprise and it was no small matter. But when she saw Luo Nan's situation of endless coughing, she couldn't help but worry. Right when she was about to call for medical personnel, the door to the ward was pushed open, and a mighty procession of doctors and nurses came in. The daily routine ward round had begun. Mr. Bai was astonishingly among the crowd, and he was in the center position. Luo Nan's attending physician had to address this little old man, who had casually put on a white coat, as Professor Bai. He was extremely respectful. "Oh, the little fellow is awake. This saves us quite a bit of trouble." A nurse came forward to do a routine examination while Mr. Bai was joking. She pulled out the monitoring data from last night for Mr. Bai to look through. Mr. Bai had long since determined what happened last night. He just scanned the data and continued to joke with Luo Nan. "What's going on with your forehead? You didn't wake up from the fall, right?" The wound on Luo Nan's forehead was a tear in the epidermis. Please continue to the next page if this chapter doesn't end. The wound had already scabbed over and stopped bleeding. It looked as if he had been hung by something. There was only a shallow wound on his forehead, which was more eye-catching. "Cough. I don't know where I hit it." Luo Nan still couldn't stop coughing. His words were intermittent. Mr. Bai walked over with a beaming smile. He checked Luo Nan's body's condition step by step. In other words, he rolled his eyelids and so on. At the same time, Mr. Bai's voice transmitted into Luo Nan's hexa ear, "Idiot. Shouldn't you be saying something like, 'Why am I here?' Cough. Why am I here?" Luo Nan's mind had always been dizzy due to the side effects of the blood pressure reduction. He really did say whatever he was told to say. He was extremely obedient. Mr. Bai was very happy. Luo Nan's age was indeed more than enough to be his grandson. He immediately patted Luo Nan's head in passing, expressing, "This child is worth teaching." Then he said, "It's nothing. This kid must have been under a lot of pressure recently. He's a bit mentally weak. His parents are here, right? Report the situation later. I'll be right downstairs." Mrs. Luo Shuqing didn't go home yesterday. She stayed at a hotel near the hospital. She informed her husband when she saw that Luo Nan was awake. Then she rushed over. She watched the entire process of the hospital examination through a video feed. She hurried to give a response through the communication device at the head of the bed. "No rush. No rush." Mr. Bai spoke with his mouth, but he grabbed Luo Nan's two hands. He indicated for Luo Nan to open up his left hand between his thumb and forefinger. His right thumb gently kneaded and pressed. He demonstrated the contact points, technique and strength. "You're coughing badly. Just deal with it like this for now. Concentrate your mind. Don't be distracted. Okay." Luo Nan did as he was told. Sure enough, the symptoms of his coughing were somewhat alleviated. He nodded in agreement on the spot. Mr. Bai walked out with his hands behind his back, beaming with smiles. However, the connection with the hexa ear was never cut off. He shared information with Luo Nan, letting Luo Nan know of his upcoming journey. Mr. Bai symbolically checked a few more patients before meeting with Mrs. Luo Shuqing. The following words were different from what he said in the ward. Looking at the situation, it can be preliminarily confirmed that it's a disorder of the autonomic nervous system. It's caused by great pressure or anger. Did you vent your anger on your family last night? Mr. Bai adopted the attitude of a charlatan. He asked a question he already knew the answer to. He immediately drew Mrs. Luo Shuqing into a trap. Chapter 158. No. It's because of what happened outside. Luo Shuqing thought of the scene in the restaurant last night. She couldn't help but feel her chest tighten and her breath quicken. She ground her teeth to pieces. What more Luo Nan, who had his neck strangled by that bastard? Mr. Bai nodded. No matter what, the symptoms have already manifested. The next problem is treatment. You did an examination at Anhai's place yesterday, which basically explained the situation. The patient has two special points. One is that he is in his puberty period. The other is that he has a history of hereditary diseases. These all need to be considered. Under the influence of incorrect information, even a capable person like Ms. Luo Shuqing could only be manipulated by others. Her mind was restless. She asked, "You mean?" My general recommendation is that there is no treatment. Taking medicine is not a good method for a child like this. Instead, he should rely on environmental regulation and self-regulation. At this stage, a family atmosphere is very important. Self-control is also very important. Simply speaking, it is to relax, recuperate, and follow a routine of work and rest. It is not recommended that he engage in heavy physical and mental activities. Of course, the current symptoms of drowsiness, coughing, and so on need to be interfered with to avoid affecting his quality of life. How about this? First, stay in the hospital for 2 days. Soak in a nutrition pod and do some psychological counseling. Let him learn how to relax. Ms. Luo Shuqing didn't respond, but Luo Nan could no longer hold it in. Mr. Bai, why do I need to stay in the hospital? Because you really are sick. Your autonomic nerves have been damaged. Mr. Bai deserved to be called an authority in the study of souls. His mental cultivation was deep. He could multitask with plenty of time. The sudden cough is the most obvious evidence. Also, are you very thirsty right now? Who are you showing this early in the morning? Who are you trying to impress with your drooping eyes? For a young man who can already use Soul Host to show these symptoms, it's obvious that there is a problem with his physiology. Luo Nan was speechless for a moment. He watched as Mr. Bai made his aunt willingly go through the procedures with just a few words. He pondered for a long time before speaking. Is it because of the imbalance of body and soul? It's good that you know your place. Mr. Bai sighed. I can see that you are very talented in the study of souls. You learned it yourself and you can use Soul Host to soul attach. This chapter is not finished. But which part of his body had been enlightened? Why did his spiritual cultivation improve again? I just tested it. Your ability on the spiritual level is quite unique. Even I can't delve too deeply into it so as to avoid causing more stimulation. But the more it was like this, the more troublesome it was. One had to know that compared to the soul, the improvement of the body was too small, and it was very easy to be left behind. In ancient times, many senior experts abandoned their bodies because of the imbalance in the progress of their souls and bodies. They were either self-righteous or had no choice but to abandon their bodies. In the end, they were reduced to wandering ghosts, their bodies and souls destroyed. We can't be careless about this. Luo Nan felt very wronged. He knew the reasoning behind this, but his soul strength had skyrocketed overnight. Was this still his fault? Well, there was no need for him to mention this particular symptom to Mr. White. Luo Nan tried asking, "Is it okay to start training now?" Mr. White snorted and said, "You sick man?" The most important thing now was to recuperate. Ren AI Hospital's nutrition cabin was very effective. Let's go through a course of treatment first to see the effect. Don't worry. It's not the usual common goods. It's the Society's special nutrient fluid. This is considered a work injury. Wait until the observation period is over. If you want to get better results, you can contact the Society's high-level pharmacists. 1 or 2 points should be enough to get someone to concoct medicine for you. Alright, you just joined the Society. Do you know what honor points are? Yes, I do. But I still need to use medicine? Luo Nan had long seen that Mr. White was a humorous person who didn't bother with trifles. He was also a warm-hearted person. Luo Nan relaxed a lot when he spoke. Then why did you say that there was no cure? I was afraid that your parents would give you the common goods on the market. Let's not talk about whether the target is right or not. If the stimulation is too light or too heavy, the situation will become more troublesome. What do? Mr. White immediately introduced Luo Nan to the situation of several high-level pharmacists in the society. But Luo Nan heard a few words and sleepiness bubbled up in his mind. He was a bit unable to calm down. He answered in a daze, "How's Brother Octopus?" "Octopus? You're familiar with him?" Mr. White sensed Luo Nan's state, but he didn't take it to heart. He just spoke truthfully, "That kid isn't bad, but he specializes in hallucinations and potential stimulation. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. We don't get along in this situation. But as a pharmacist, his connections are stronger than mine. You can consult his opinion." Luo Nan's impression of this warm-hearted and selfless old man grew more and more favorable. He promptly expressed his thanks. Mr. White emphasized a few taboos that Luo Nan needed to pay attention to. Then he let Luo Nan sleep first. This would make it convenient for the hospital to do further examinations. Luo Nan really couldn't hold on any longer. He gave his thanks again and fell onto the bed. Who knew that a new message would come from the Hexier at this time? It was a brief report on last night's mission. From Luo Nan's understanding, a brief report meant honor points. He was about to use it, so he suppressed his sleepiness and opened it to read. It looked like this brief report was He Yuan's work. It was concise and clear. Luo Nan skimmed through the description of the course of the operation. Then he looked at his own evaluation and points. Luo Nan's performance in this operation was mainly in discovering problems in the early stages. And in the early stages of the operation, he excelled in completing the reconnaissance mission. He created the conditions for the society to successfully stop Jack. He didn't show anything else clearly, so his evaluation was a bit lower than last time. It was C+. His honor points were at 3 points. He was still in the first echelon. His current honor points had already reached 7 points. His accumulation speed was quite astonishing. It looked like he needed to seriously understand the society's shop. Luo Nan soon flipped to the end of the brief report, but he discovered that the format of the brief report was slightly different from last time. This time's brief report even had a link to spoils of war attached. He opened it and found out that the society had a spoils of war auction system. That is, the spoils of war would be displayed in an operation that yielded spoils of war. The members participating in the operation would bid based on their evaluation and determine who the spoils of war belonged to. As for the spoils of war this time, they were, of course, mainly obtained from Jack. They included a medium transport vehicle, deep blue walker exoskeleton armor, remains, detection scanner equipment, body modification parts second-hand, and so on. Of course, the most eye-catching item was naturally the deep-sea Type 4 dynamo core. Luo Nan stared at this interface for a long time before he finally couldn't hold back. He coughed and laughed. He was very happy. Yan Yongbua should be very anxious. Chapter 159. Luo Nan paid the most attention to the deep-sea Type 4 dynamo core within the series of spoils of war. He remembered watching the scene from the sidelines. After the dynamo core lost the stimulation of energy and information, the separated filaments were retracted one after another. The wheat seed structure also became loose, returning to a 4 to 5 centimeter thin needle. It was very similar to his external neuron. A cutting-edge product that might very well be of the same origin as the external neuron in his possession, a direct clue that might very well be related to his father's whereabouts. Luo Nan was extremely interested in these spoils of war just based on this point. Moreover, Luo Nan had watched the entire negotiation process between Jack and Yan Yongbua. Naturally, he knew the value of the dynamo core and its related technology. At the very least, in the eyes of those who were observant, even if all the other spoils of war were to be combined together, they wouldn't even be worth half a fraction of it. The first thing Luo Nan did was to look at the bidding situation for the dynamo core. However, the bidding description showed that the spoils of war were still in the evaluation phase. It seemed that the society was unable to determine its value. Jack's brain nucleus was also being evaluated. This was a little surprising. The brain nucleus was admittedly an important processing center for the altered human, providing high-level thinking and emotional templates. However, it was still a mass-produced product after all. There was no reason for it to be placed on the same level as the dynamo core. Oh wait, I remember that this thing was wrapped inside the dynamo core? Luo Nan recalled the situation at the time. After the dynamo core had removed its metal wheat seed form, it had indeed dropped this brain core. Even earlier, when the Wraith sign probed Jack's brain, it discovered that the dynamo core was also surrounding the brain nucleus. It was unknown if there were any special requirements inside. There were too many mysteries surrounding Jack. Thinking back to last night, he had originally wanted to find out more about Yan Yonghua, tonight's but a freak combination of factors had caused such a huge scene. Luowan is the same, Jack was one of the most important catalysts. She has never woken up, deep blue world, but her injuries are much more serious than all unheard of. If Jack had an injury, there's no harm how would Luonan have known of these things? Though they weren't placed together, after Jack's death, many clues were lost. Than anyone else wondered if the association could put in more effort and dig out more relevant information. According to his deduction, if this didn't work, difficult for the girl to wake up within the next 2 days. He was pondering over Jack's secrets when a sudden connection suddenly cut in. Even when she was unconscious, it was still operating instinctively. Are you feeling better? During continuous battles, to have a good sleep? The rhythm of her body and soul was directed towards rapid recovery. If this chapter is not finished, however, once the situation slowed down, the rhythm would become extremely slow. It was as if she wanted to take a long nap to conserve her energy. Luonan really needed to learn this method of making precise adjustments according to the changes in the external environment. Alright, you want to play bidding? Luonan jumped in fright from this fellow. Even his sleepiness was swept away a bit. How did you know? Look at the interface. It's clear who's online and who's paying attention. You don't even know this. You're just a rookie and you still want to compete with others for money? Cragburst laughed loudly. Luonan knew that he had made a mistake, but he didn't let go of the opportunity to understand his opponent. He asked directly, which one have you taken a fancy to? I'm not interested in any of them. They don't match with my abilities and hobbies. Cragburst responded quite straightforwardly. Then why are you looking? If I can trick someone, why wouldn't I look? Cragburst laughed again. It looks like the middleman hasn't found you yet. Perhaps your information is classified and he can't find a breakthrough point for now. Middleman? Even if you don't ask, I'll still remind you. Look, you're a psychic. You're a mentally enhanced ability user. You have nothing to do with altered people or anything like that. I'm afraid that not many of these spoils of war have caught your eye. Luonan hesitated for a moment, but he still responded to Cragburst's words. Cragburst talked non-stop as he explained, but for our society, aside from going to the wilderness for a big gamble, there aren't many situations in which we can see so many spoils of war within the city. The right to bid, especially the right to bid in the first wave, is truly rare. If we use it carelessly or miss it, then it would truly be a waste. When Luonan heard this, please flip the page if this chapter doesn't end, he understood. You're talking about purchasing. There's someone in the society who has taken a fancy to the items inside. They want to trade for them. Smart. But I need to add one more thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone from the society. Even outsiders can do it. Of course they can. As long as they can bring out goods that move people's hearts, then they can exchange what they need. The cutting-edge technological equipment we obtain this time is quite popular in the market. There are already 2 or 3 parties who have expressed interest, especially the 2 items that are currently being evaluated. Even I'm moved by their conditions. Luonan's mind had been preoccupied with something. Hearing this immediately stirred an extremely sensitive chord and he blurted out, "It can't be Yan Yonghua, right? Yan Yonghua? No, it's an intermediary company." Wait a minute. The news came out too fast. The briefing is still hot. Cragburst's temperament was straightforward, but he wasn't an idiot. He clapped his hands on the spot. Don't say it. It's really possible. Luonan grinned. I don't want to do as he wishes. Cragburst naturally knew of Luonan's attitude towards Yan Yonghua. His interest was immediately piqued. I'll go check it out. Wait for my news. If it's true, then the way we do things will be different. He excitedly hung up the call and went to work. Luonan muttered to himself for a moment. He set the bidding for the dynamo core, including the brain core, to be watched immediately. He exited the interface of the Hexier. Right now he was lying on his bed, blinking his eyes. Though drowsiness surged forth like a tide, he felt as if he had missed something. Oh, that's right. He turned his head. The split-page notebook that never left his side lay peacefully on the headboard of his bed. The pitch-black cover was like the entrance to a tunnel leading to an unknown direction. Luonan leaned against the headboard and sat up. He flipped open the notebook to the flexible e-ink screen page. He swept his eyes over the other icons and stopped on the visualization diagram. The visualization diagram icon that had just been displayed on Friday night was still in the download and install state. However, the area that glowed faintly seemed to have increased by a tiny bit. Sure enough, when he mentally injected it, the percentage of completion displayed had jumped from 2% to 6%. Should he be happy for the sake of a threefold increase? Luonan shook his head and his finger brushed across the flexible screen. The interface turned off and a slender needle was drawn out from within the flexible screen without a sound. The next update will be around 2 in the morning. Everyone don't wait. Let's see it tomorrow morning. Chapter 160. Luo Nan focused his gaze on this dynamo core that he had long since possessed. Compared to the Deep-Sea Type 4, Luo Nan was certain that this dynamo core was nearly twice the length of the Deep-Sea Type 4. And clairvoyance on the mental plane could see that the electricity flowing on the dynamo core was much more intense. It was probably because the model was different, but he didn't know how to address it. From Luo Nan's current perspective, this toy, the dynamo core, was truly very peculiar. It possessed a feeling of substance on the material plane, yet it constantly affected the mental plane. The mental and the material interfered with each other, blurring the positioning of its material. It was as if the dynamo core existed in the crevice between the mental and material planes. There were simply too many things worth studying. Luo Nan let the dynamo core merge with his brain while he pondered. He wanted to try and see if he could be like Jack and activate this toy. Since it's an activation, we should give it some stimulation. Luo Nan wasn't like Jack. He didn't have a dedicated power transmission line, so he was unable to provide enormous electrical support. All he had was soul energy. He didn't know what to do either. He simply let his soul power seep in and it quickly turned into a form of observation. The range of his spiritual senses shrank rapidly in exchange for an increase in accuracy. But for now, no matter how much the range shrank, it was still locked within a range of 10 meters. No matter how much his accuracy increased, it was still swaying around the millimeter level. His best record was still some distance away from 1/10 of a millimeter. This obviously wouldn't work. If one were to use the standards of cutting-edge technology to determine the precision of the dynamo core's craftsmanship, it would at least be at the nanometer level. That was 1/millionth of a millimeter precision, which was close to the atomic scale. Just thinking about it made one despair. However, Luo Nan still knew that within the dynamo core, there existed an inconceivable subbrain chip within the neuron-like structure of the cell body. It bore the burden of a huge amount of coding, translation, and calculation tasks. The reason he knew all this was because last week, the dynamo core had grown to a certain degree under the support of the abundant energy of the independent power station of the Gear Laboratory. Providing a huge amount of energy was obviously a more direct and effective method. Compared to an independent power station, Luo Nan's individual strength was negligible. Of course, the dynamo core did not respond. Sure enough, it's not that easy. If I can get Jack's dynamo core application technology and use it on myself, it shouldn't be considered as a cyborg, right? Luo Nan fell into a deep sleep with this thought in mind. However, less than half an hour later, he suddenly opened his eyes and moaned. This won't do, it's too dangerous. The method that Mo Luan provided was indeed only a temporary measure. It wasn't completely correct. Luo Nan, in order to lose weight. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Lightening the pressure on the body, making the soul and the physical body inseparable, tilting the soul deeper into the mental plane. At first it was fine. The pressure on the body was reduced. Other than lethargy, coughing, and occasional shortness of breath, there were no other symptoms. But as time passed and he gradually fell asleep, the side effects of his soul delving deeper into the spiritual plane appeared. Chaotic to chaotic. No matter how much Luo Nan desensitized the noise of his soul, the basic unit was right there. As long as the soul configuration, a concept he learned from Jack, fell into reality and truly existed, the circulation of energy and information would never stop. All sorts of information in the surrounding environment would be used at all times. In particular, this was a hospital and inpatient department. Almost all the creatures here carried some sort of illness. One or two didn't matter, but when dozens or hundreds of them gathered together, they formed a gloomy and chaotic spiritual wave that covered every floor. A normal person might only feel a bit depressed, but Luo Nan could even hear the despairing weeping and howling of the patient. Life was withering and decaying, energy and information colliding, everything was gloomy and deathly still. It only took half an hour for Luo Nan to feel depressed. He couldn't go on like this. Luo Nan tried to find a better place for his soul to rest. But the problem was that this kind of place didn't exist on the mental plane, but it was in a deep and secluded area. It was far from the material plane, so it was impossible to maintain the state of being inseparable from the physical body. Wouldn't this be an out-of-body experience? Luo Nan tossed and turned on the bed. He was clearly sleepy, but the disturbance was endless. He was tormented to the point where he wanted to contact Mr. Bai and ask to be discharged. There isn't a single one that can accommodate soul strength without leaving the body? Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed the notebook at the head of the bed. With a thought, the dynamo core of an unknown model seeped into his body from his palm, traveling all the way to his brain. He referred to Jack as an example and let the dynamo core stop at the central mass between the left and right thalamus. He poured his soul clairvoyance into it, entering the marvelous crevice of mutual interference between the mental and the material. It's working. It's really peaceful. It's like there's nothing at the end of the deep void. Luo Nan really fell asleep this time. It was incomparably peaceful. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon when Luo Nan woke up. It just so happened to be visiting time. His aunt was in the ward, staring blankly at him, lost in thought. Aunt? Luo Shuqing's gaze connected. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. Her eyes were slightly moist, but she had already lost control of herself too many times since last night. She didn't want Luo Nan's mood to be stimulated again, so she took a deep breath and forcefully maintained a calm tone. Do you know how you came in? You slept in the car? Luo Nan put on an innocent face. In reality, he really didn't know how to alleviate the worry and anxiety of his elders. It was impossible for him to pat his chest in this situation and say, "This kind of thing will never happen in the future." On the contrary, this kind of thing will probably happen more and more often in the future. Luo Nan's hesitation made Luo Shuqing comfort him. Are you feeling better now? The doctor said that it's mainly a neurological disorder. The symptoms aren't serious and you don't need to take medicine. Soak in a health pot a few times, stop coughing, drowsiness and other conditions and you can go home. Normally, Luo Nan should have asked something like, what's going on in the end, but he didn't want to say these empty words at this time. He just smiled at Luo Shuqing. I don't feel anything. It's like I skipped a day of classes? I've already applied for a long-distance video course on your behalf. It starts tomorrow. The conversation between aunt and niece was about to step onto the normal track when a soft electronic sound rang out. A face that Luo Nan was familiar with appeared on the display panel of the mechanical nurse. Mr. Xie Junping has come to visit. Luo Nan was quite surprised. This person's information is quite fast. Luo Shuqing was a bit surprised. Your friend? Yes. Xie Junping pushed open the door at this time and walked in with large strides. He shouted, Junior Nan, I heard that you're sick and hospitalized. What's the situation? He was stunned when he saw Luo Shuqing when he opened his mouth. He had read through Luo Nan's information and quickly realized the relationship between the two. He immediately bowed. Hello Mrs. Luo. I'm Xie Junping. I'm the same as Luo Nan, I'm also at Acumen College. It must be said that before Luo Shuqing saw through Xie Junping's nature, this fellow's bright and cheerful appearance gave people quite a good impression. Luo Shuqing's first impression of him was quite good. Luo Shuqing was a very traditional woman by nature. Even though she really wanted to speak a few more words with her nephew, she still paid great attention to etiquette since they were guests. She chatted a few words with Xie Junping before excusing herself to understand Luo Nan's condition. She gave the two youngsters space to converse. Xie Junping bowed all the way as he saw Luo Shuqing out the door. He came back and bragged, even though a certain someone isn't sleeping and is hospitalized, the procedures related to the Order Club were all done in 3 days. Chapter 161. Xie Junping had said last week that Luo Nan needed to go through the procedures after entering the society. However, Luo Nan had slept for an entire day over the weekend. On Sunday he had gone to the sanatorium to accompany his grandfather. On Monday he had been directly admitted to the hospital. He had tossed all of these matters aside. It was fortunate that Xie Junping had picked up all of these matters. Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. He expressed his thanks and buried his head in a pile of electronic documents. Xie Junping had been explaining the purpose of each document to Luo Nan in the beginning, but then he saw that Luo Nan was completely ignoring him. Luo Nan was wholeheartedly focused on signing, displaying complete trust in Xie Junping. Xie Junping felt comfortable in his heart and simply began to chat. Of course, the topic of conversation was always about gear. Brother Nan, you just don't like the construction society, right? I don't think you need to worry too much. It looks like the construction society is determined to bring in the Rainbow Fund, but the Mystic Arts Research Society isn't to be trifled with. When those people become willful, they dare to do anything. I've been asking around these past 2 days. They're all clamoring to start a war with the construction society. In comparison, the Rainbow Fund is still a legitimate company. They have to look at investment returns, right? What if the manager goes crazy? Luo Nan put down his digital pen for the first time. He raised his head and asked, Gear. Aside from its location and design, are there any other high-value assets? I've never heard of this. Why do you think so? Right now, the premium between the two sides is not particularly serious. Luo Nan didn't speak. He learned something from Crag Burst. After last night's conflict in the dining room, Yin Yongbo really put in a lot of effort when he talked about gear. He treated it as a proper business and even gave the lawyer a deadline. It seemed like someone was forcing him. This was completely different from Luo Nan's initial conjecture of personal reasons. Also, the Mystic Arts Research Society also had an incredible background. Last Friday night at the Limestone Water Village pub, Luo Nan discovered during his operation that this society was actually related to the Order of Justice. In the past, Luo Nan did not have a direct understanding of the strength of a secret order. But this time, the power grasped by Elder Mo Luan of the Tiny Blood Flame Order was an eye-opener for him. From this, it could be inferred that the Order of Justice, whose strength was far above that of the Blood Flame Order, was certainly an incredible colossus. The bidding war between the Mystic Arts Research Society and the Construction Society seemed to have broken away from the competition between school societies and sponsors. It had entered a completely different level. Hopefully he was just thinking too much. Of course Luo Nan had gear. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Irreplaceable significance. He also believed that his mother's designs had the power to become a classic. But for powers like Quantum Corporation and the Order of Justice, what was the actual value of a wetland building? Luo Nan hated that he couldn't immediately return to school to see what was going on. At 5 o'clock, the hospital's visiting hours ended. Both Xie Junping and Luo Shuqing were persuaded to leave. On the other hand, Luo Nan truly began his health pod treatment. There was no dinner, and he had to be stuffed naked into a translucent nutrition pod. The most embarrassing thing was that Mr. Bai had personally come to supervise. Luo Nan seriously suspected that this overly carefree little old man had come to see him make a fool of himself. Don't be nervous. Don't you have a filter? If he could breathe, he would just take it as sleeping in the bathtub. By the way, since you just woke up, do you want to play some games? There's even a game? Luo Nan was wearing a breathing apparatus so he couldn't open his mouth. He could only watch with wide eyes. Through the Hexier. Mr. White smiled as he switched to the Hexier channel. Ouyang has migrated quite a few games to the Psychic Wave network. They are updated in a timely manner and are very popular. For example, there are games like 10 Days in the Wilderness. Don't you youngsters like to play? Hold on. Don't jump around like this. Mr. Bai tapped his own forehead. I heard that your application of the Hexier has already reached the computer level? That's how it is. This is a typical manifestation of an imbalance between body and soul. It seems that you've learned to attach your soul without a teacher. Perhaps the 4th level simulator won't be a problem for you. If you get addicted to playing, your soul strength will increase. Then you'll be in big trouble. Simulator? It's similar to virtual reality. In the Hexier, it goes from basic interactive applications to active collection and operation of energy and information. It breaks away from the limitations of the fleshly body and materializes self-logic on the psychic wave network. Luo Nan blinked and concluded, out-of-body state? Mr. Bai raised his eyebrows. That's right. This kid's brain is really fast. This is the out-of-body state. It's also called astral travel. On the psychic wave network, there's the protection of energy. The risk of an out-of-body state can be minimized. You can try it in the future, but you absolutely can't right now. Not only can you not play games, but you can't leave the body. There's also meditation. Alright. You can meditate, right? I can visualize a bit. Isn't that about the same? It's the same. All methods that can increase soul strength can't be used. Here. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. At your level, visualization is no longer a game of pure thought. It is necessary to gather and operate energy and information at all times. This will bring enormous pressure to the fleshly body. You'll truly lose your balance. When the time comes, it'll be a bit easier for you to just die. Mr. Bai's words knocked Luo Nan back to the cold reality. He could only laugh bitterly for a time. Reality was like this. If he hadn't learned a bit of expediency from Mo Luan, and if he hadn't had the dynamo core to entrust his soul to and dispel the pressure, Luo Nan would certainly be living a life worse than death. Mr. Bai scared Luo Nan to let him understand the seriousness of the matter. Then he gave a solution. If you really can't do it, then chat. This old man won't chat with you. You can find someone else. Cragburst is a chatterbox. That secretary seems to treat you quite well. She's even a beauty. Luonan rolled his eyes while the nutrient fluid hadn't covered his face yet. All right. I'll go find Ouyang and seal your privileges. Kids are always unreliable. The old mister did what he said. He patted his butt and left. Luonan really admired this old man. But he really did relax quite a bit after being messed around like this. He didn't feel any discomfort even though he was covered in the nutrient fluid. But soon Luonan was faced with a real problem. He really couldn't sleep. There were many things in his mind, but he couldn't find a clue. It was a mess and his brain was especially excited. It was very tiring. Did he really have to chat? Helpless, Luonan scrolled through his friend list on the Hexier. There were only He Yuan, Cragburst, Octopus, Zhang Yingying, Mr. Bai, and a few others on the list. Which one should he choose? Someone had already taken the initiative to make a choice for Luonan while he was in a dilemma. The greenish-gray octopus had jumped up and down. Bro Octopus? Bro, have you entered the cabin yet? I'm inside. Luonan had already contacted Octopus before starting the treatment. They discussed the matter of concocting the nutrient fluid. As a professional, Octopus gave Luonan many useful suggestions. He also wanted to help Luonan contact a suitable pharmacist. In the professional field, Octopus's horizons no longer stopped at Xia City. He looked to the entire world. He recommended Luonan an authority in the field of nerve repair, Dr. Clay, who was far away in Los Angeles, America. He even volunteered to make the contact. Right now there was already a result. Bro, I have the latest news. Chapter 162. Octopus chuckled. Luonan knew that it was almost done. Our luck is pretty good. Dr. Clay is quite interested in your case. He has already decided to take it. I've already paid in advance. Bro Octopus. Hey, you can't let me take advantage of you, right? That nerve drug of yours must be shelved. It targets neurons. Most of them are sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. If damage has already appeared, it will be hard to predict what will happen if we continue to stimulate them. If we save this expense, wouldn't I be taking your grandfather's molecular formula for free? That's not how it works. That's how it works. Alright, there's a small problem in this matter. Dr. Clay is currently working on a project. He can't get away for a while, so he sent his students over to do the preliminary data collection and testing work. It will be done in about a week. As for Dr. Clay, it will be the end of the month. The end of the month? Luonan was startled. His scalp went numb in the blink of an eye. Didn't this mean that he would have to soak in this large bathtub of the health pod for another month? He hesitated for a moment before finally saying, "Wouldn't this take too long?" Octopus laughed. What's the big deal in a month? It's not even a single course of treatment. You won't have to stay in the hospital forever. I asked Mr. Bai. As long as you can suppress your cough and lethargy, you can leave the hospital at any time. Then you can report to the hospital every other night for specialized treatment. The society will reimburse you. After all, it's a work injury. Luonan knew that Octopus and Mr. Bai had talked. The light blue liquid of the health pod had completely covered Luonan's head by now. Even though he was wearing filters, earplugs and other protective equipment, the strange, indescribably sticky feeling became more and more distinct. Luonan was not averse to this feeling due to his childhood experiences. He could faintly sense the composition of the nutrient fluid seeping into his body bit by bit with the precision of his senses. It affected the secretion of his body's chemical composition to a certain extent. Luonan could not help but carefully discern the minute changes within due to his years of habit. In the past he could only sense it roughly. Now he was countless times more precise. Correspondingly, the operating efficiency of energy and information had unknowingly increased. Not good. Luonan suddenly came to his senses, and he hastily stopped the thought of clairvoyance. Even so, there were still many parts of his body that were faintly aching. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. The pain made him break out in a cold sweat. Was she trying to cure him or harm him? If he had to experience this for the next month, then Luonan really would have the heart to die. His restlessness delayed him for a while, and he was also distracted. Octopus could only call out again, "Hey brother, what's wrong? Do you feel uncomfortable?" "It's nothing." Luonan couldn't say that he was courting death, but in the end he couldn't help but grumble, "This place feels really vexing." He really suspected that the subtle feeling he had toward the health pod over the years would be completely subverted by the treatment period of a month or even longer. You just need to get used to it. Actually, I don't know how much I envy you. Brother Octopus, really, I'm not lying to you. Octopus couldn't empathize with Luo Nan at this time. His attention was focused elsewhere. You don't know who the student that Dr. Clay sent over is? By Xinyan. She's the flower of fantasy in the pharmaceutical world. She's absolutely a first-rate beauty. She's not any worse than your secretary. Luo Nan decided not to say anything. But Octopus was inexplicably excited. TSK. She was really hot back in the day. If it wasn't for Mr. Bai keeping a close eye on her back in Xia City, I would have definitely chased after her. Think about it. You get to spend a month with such a beauty. Yeah, even if you spend 3 weeks with her, it's still a golden opportunity. Luo Nan was stupefied. Mr. Bai? Yeah. She's Mr. Bai's daughter. She's also a mentally enhanced ability user, but she's even more talented in pharmaceutical studies. She's Dr. Clay's favorite disciple. She even surpasses him in some areas. Alright. You need to remember that Mr. Bai and his daughter don't have a good relationship. Bai Xinyan left for America and hasn't returned for many years. It seems that this is one of the reasons. Don't use your relationship to worm your way into getting close to her. Otherwise, don't blame me for not reminding you if a problem arises. Okay. Luo Nan was really defeated by Octopus. Then that's it? Alright, the health pod is vexing. Do you want to chat? Tonight is free. Several bouts of cold rain drifted past. The chill gradually grew heavier. The sky of Xia City darkened earlier and earlier. Today was another day with dense clouds and no rain. The cool and refreshing autumn weather had been blown to who knows where. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Xia City Airport. Inside the VIP lounge. Yen Yongbua sat quietly on the sofa. His posture was upright and his expression was dull. He looked completely like a successful businessman. His aura was a bit stronger than that of Quantum Corporation's Xia City area CEO, Hu Yuli. However, Hu Yuli didn't mind. He minded his own business, drinking tea and resting. Occasionally, he would cast a glance at the enormous projection area in the lounge. Right now, the projection area was broadcasting a special program produced by the Star Associated Society. The host spoke extremely fast as he asked the expert, "Why did deep blue walkers appear in Xia City?" It seems that the military has never sent this force to any metropolitan area, let alone to fight within. This should be the first time in history. Expert One's expression was wooden as he spoke. There have been. From what I remember, there was one in 90 years, but it wasn't to carry out a military mission. There should be others, but they have always kept a low profile. Most of the time, the public has overlooked them. The host immediately passed this fellow who didn't know how to cooperate. He consulted Expert 2. Most of us have the impression that deep blue walkers always appear in the wilderness or on the sea. They always fight with mutants. This gives us an innate impression that wherever deep blue walkers appear, it is always extremely dangerous. Expert 2's face was filled with a strange smile that said, "I knew you were going to make big news." He spoke rather fluently. Not only do we have to pay attention to the appearance of deep blue walkers, we also have to pay attention to the reaction speed of the government and the military. The number of deep blue walkers is limited. There are currently only 4 divisions in the entire world, and they aren't filled up all year round. Normally they operate in teams. Currently, combining all the information, the number of deep blue walkers that appeared in the early morning hours of the first is already very large. The possibility of a temporary transfer is very small. This means that they have always been in the vicinity. They might even be on standby in Xia City. As for why, we can only see the subsequent developments and the information excavated by all parties. Expert 2 didn't present any actual evidence, but he gave people unlimited room for imagination. Only then was the host satisfied. Now, we will cut to a short video to further understand the deep blue walkers. At this moment, a sweet-sounding bell rang out in the lounge, indicating that the passenger spaceship they were waiting for had already entered the airport. Hu Yuli and the other pickup personnel all stood up. Only Yen Yongbua stared at the projection screen without moving for a long time. Chapter 163. Hu Yuli turned his head to look. Assistant Yen? Yen Yongbua didn't even raise his head as he spoke coldly. Cutting off Quantum Corporation from the program must have cost quite a bit. It's all right. The money was withdrawn from headquarters. They've always had a good relationship with the Star Associated Society. Hu Yuli responded with a smile. He didn't care if this smile was some sort of provocation. Frankly speaking, Hu Yuli really admired Yan Yongbua. Using a weapon on the level of a particle cannon in the vicinity of the residential area of Xia City was far too audacious. If the matter had been resolved satisfactorily, the company and the laboratory might have praised him for being courageous. But now Jack was dead, the test subjects were lost, and 2 Deep Blue Walkers were lost. The entire operation was a complete failure. The so-called courageous had become arrogant. The direct losses caused during the operation could only be counted as a small fraction of all the troubles they faced. The Xia City government and military were already badly battered because of the human-faced arachnid incident. The cannon in the early morning hours of October 1st directly smashed the chaotic situation into a muddy pit. Who knew how many people in the political, military and business circles wanted to fish in troubled waters and reshuffle the cards? 3 days after the incident, videos and photos of the Deep Blue Walkers appearing in Xia City had already broken through Quantum Corporation's blockade and quietly circulated on the internet. After accumulating enough, it exploded with a bang. Although it didn't involve particle cannons or Darksider species, the Deep Blue Walkers themselves were already an extremely prominent symbol of danger. In addition, earthquakes had occurred frequently over the past half a month. Both sides were intertwined together. Just a casual association would cause all kinds of strange and wonderful stories to circulate. Even the core insiders would be flabbergasted by some of these stories. These effects continued to ferment over the course of a week. The Star Associated Society, which had always pursued novelty and speed, even produced a special program a week after the incident. It wasn't unprecedented, but it was still very rare. Admittedly, Quantum Corporation's competitors were playing dirty in the dark, but it couldn't be denied that the entire incident was popular in society. At this point, the situation was completely out of control. As the nominally highest decision-making body on Earth, the Planetary Joint Development Organization Program Committee, Star Associated Committee, expressed disappointment with the Xia City government and military's ability to control. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. They were unable to properly control a war-level weapon like the charged particle cannon. They were unable to monitor a highly destructive team like the Deep Blue Walkers. They were unable to deal with the aftermath. The government and the military of Xia City had been slapped in the face over a dozen times. They flew into a rage out of humiliation. They immediately stopped all cooperation with Quantum Corporation regarding the human-faced arachnid matter. All sorts of investigation teams were sprayed out like water, heading towards every organization of Quantum Corporation. As for reasons such as the Darksider species, they were directly ignored in a situation where Quantum Corporation's headquarters was unable to fully endorse them. Hu Yuli had been managing the Xia City region for nearly a decade, but he had never encountered such a precarious situation. It was as if a team of military police would come in at any time and drag them all to prison. However, the headquarters still maintained an ambiguous attitude. On one hand, he didn't say a word about the suppression of Xia City's government and military. On the other hand, he controlled public opinion from beginning to end. He even controlled the tone of Xia City's government and military. He perfectly avoided the heart of the storm. No matter how one looked at it, they were treated like abandoned pawns. Hu Yuli's mental preparation had been going on for the past 3 days. After repeatedly smashing the jar, he became more and more calm and composed. On the other hand, it was worth exploring what Yan Yongbo was feeling right now. At this time, the sound of footsteps could already be heard from the VIP passageway. Hu Yuli called out once more, "Assistant Yan?" Yan Yongbo finally stood up. He straightened his collar and walked out with large strides. He walked in front out of habit, snatching Hu Yuli's seat of honor. Hu Yuli wasn't the least bit angry. Yan Yongbo's timing was just right. The group had just left when they saw a flight attendant leading a tall woman into the passageway. The woman wore a long, camel-colored windbreaker. She carried a large, dark brown backpack on one shoulder. Her upper body seemed to be casually draped in a white t-shirt with ghost patterns. The image of a ghost face was supported by the curved lines of the shirt. It was extremely bewitching. She wore black trousers and high heels under the hem of her shirt. Her long legs were straight and soul-stirring. Her long, wavy hair, dyed brownish yellow, draped behind her shoulders. She wore a black mask on her face, covering half of her porcelain-like cheeks. But when she saw the stream of people pouring out of the lounge, she smiled. Her slightly wide lips formed an upward curve. Her teeth were white like jade. She was confident and at ease. It made the dignified female flight attendant beside her pale in comparison. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Yen Yonghua took a deep breath and walked up to her. Supervisor Bai, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Hu Yuli followed and expressed his concern. I heard it wasn't a peaceful journey. It was hard to tell where Supervisor Bai was looking after her black mask. However, she responded to Hu Yuli's question. Yes, we were attacked by a three-headed vulture. It was a false alarm. As she spoke, she carried her backpack and continued walking forward. Some of the flight attendants wanted to take the backpack from her, but for some reason they didn't dare to move. Yen Yonghua and Hu Yuli naturally followed by her side and returned to the VIP lounge. After throwing the dark brown backpack on the sofa, Supervisor Bai sat next to it. Her elbow propped up the bulging bulge as she took off her sunglasses. Her wild cheeks that never seemed to be at peace were now completely free from the shackles. In particular, the pair of eyes that were deeply sunken in his eye sockets seemed to flicker with light at any moment. However, upon closer inspection, they were clearly layers upon layers of cold flames. Hu Yuli didn't look directly at such eyes. He picked up his teacup and lowered his head in contemplation. Yen Yonghua, on the other hand, raised his head and faced this new colleague with the calmest and strongest attitude. At least that was what he had to think for now. In the end, it was Hu Yuli who laughed. Supervisor Bai, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. We have already prepared a place for you to stay. Why don't you take a rest first? That's not necessary. I haven't been back to Xia City for a long time. I have an appointment with a friend. Supervisor Bai glanced at the two people in the room and smiled. Let's get down to business before we settle our personal matters. The task assigned to me by the laboratory is to investigate the relationship between the Deep Blue World Soul Sect and the various secret sects on Earth. So far, the most valuable information came from Assistant Yen. It is said that Jack personally admitted that he knows some of the contacts of the Soul Sect. Seeing that Supervisor Bai had gone straight to the point, Yen Yonghua secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He immediately replied, yes, including a senior member. So, what's the specific situation? Yen Yonghua paused for a moment before saying, Jack is dead. We are pursuing the relevant clues to obtain his relevant information and records. We are currently working on it. Supervisor Bai picked up her sunglasses with one finger and magically made the sunglasses spin on her fingertips. More specific? Chapter 164. Yen Yonghua's gaze shifted from Supervisor Bai's slender fingertips. His expression turned gloomy, but he still remained calm. We believe that Jack was a modified human, at least until the night of September 30th. That way, his way of thinking would not have been able to surpass the template of the brain nucleus and would not have been creative. We have the template settings of his version of the brain nucleus and have used the exhaustive method to list all possible options. We have selected the ones with the highest probability and checked them one by one. Okay, and then? So far we've searched through Jack's life circle, but we didn't find anything. The Apocalypse Laboratory searched through the cloud space where the data was uploaded, but we didn't find anything either. After various investigations, we can basically confirm that if there are any relevant data records, they must be carried by Jack. Yen Yonghua glanced at Supervisor Bai's face and paused for a moment before continuing. We have searched the battlefield in the early morning of October 1st, but the Ability User Association's search was very thorough and did not leave anything valuable behind. This way, the target is likely to be in their internal bidding for the spoils of war. So far, we have recovered all the bidding goods through the middleman. However, the evaluation of the Deep Sea Type 4 Dynamo Core and the brain nucleus has not been completed and the bidding has not begun. In addition, the C-2834 test subject is still under the control of the Ability User Association. It has been in a coma for the 7th consecutive day, but from the collected information, its vital signs are relatively stable. The lengthy speech could basically be regarded as a work report. Yen Yonghua felt this halfway through his speech. However, the arrow was already on the bow and there was no reason to stop halfway. Supervisor Bai did not respond immediately after the long speech. She seemed to be digesting the information and seemed to be in a daze. Yen Yonghua hated this kind of situation where he had to wait for someone to express their stance, but he still had to wait patiently. At the same time, his heart slowly sank. This was the last thing he wanted to see. Hu Yuli was still drinking his tea, his eyes narrowed. After about half a minute, Supervisor Bai finally said, After listening to Assistant Yen, I am relieved. Yen Yonghua's eyes lit up and a smile appeared on his face. Supervisor Bai, before returning to Xia City, I actually had a headache. After all, our missions are different. Even if we have a bit of cooperation with Jack and the C-2834 test subject, the following work will inevitably divide Xia City's current strength. Supervisor Bai leaned against her backpack and changed into a more comfortable position. It's all good now. All the measures that Assistant Yen has taken so far are under control. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. In this case, I don't need to be polite, I can just use it. Yen Yonghua's expression changed. His current position was the CEO of the Rainbow Fund and the assistant manager of the Sky Blue Security Company. On the surface, the former definitely had more funds and resources than the latter, and that was indeed the case in a normal society. However, the problem was that if Yen Yonghua could only choose between the two positions, he would undoubtedly choose the position of assistant manager. This was because it represented the formidable strength of 4 full squads and nearly 30 deep blue walkers. But now, Supervisor Bai wanted to take everything away with just one sentence? The situation was worse than Yen Yonghua had imagined. Supervisor Bai wasn't just making empty promises. She had the signature of the Quantum Corporation headquarters and the Apocalypse Laboratory. When this electronic document was inserted into Yen Yonghua's work wristband, the authority settings on it came into play. Yen Yonghua's direct leadership of the 4 deep blue walker squads, which was the position of chief captain, was transferred to Supervisor Bai. Currently, Yen Yonghua was only an assistant in name at the Sky Blue Security Company. In reality, there was no longer any meaning. Yen Yonghua's face was ashen as he stared at Supervisor Bai's dazzling face. His aura was already fluctuating faintly and the blood in his chest was about to boil. Supervisor Bai's relaxed posture did not change. She smiled at Yen Yonghua and continued to gather the power in his body. Huyuli could not sense the power mode of the burner, but he found that the atmosphere in the room had become extremely dangerous. It was not good for him to sit still, so he put down his cup and smiled to smooth things over. The headquarters and the laboratory must have their reasons for this arrangement. As long as the two of you cooperate sincerely, it doesn't really matter who is in charge of which area. In the end, there is still a difference. Supervisor Bai was surprisingly frank. As for the specific difference, Assistant Yen knows CEO Yen can slowly experience it. Oh, I haven't congratulated you on your promotion to CEO. See you later. As she spoke, she stood up, picked up her large backpack and prepared to leave. Yen Yonghua stood up abruptly. For a moment he really wanted to pounce on her, but in the end, his feet rooted to the ground. Only a hoarse voice squeezed out of his throat, but even he himself did not know what he said. Supervisor Bai seemed to have heard it clearly. Do you want to know the reason or the result? Why don't I tell you both? Research is not your job, so mistakes can be forgiven. Excavation is a task you cannot afford to make mistakes. However, Xia City's limited power cannot be divided up just for you. At the end of the day you are still. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Failure is inevitable. As for the reason, it is very simple. You are on the wrong team. She smiled slightly. When she passed by Yen Yonghua, she patted his face lightly, then put on her sunglasses and walked out. Yen Yonghua was in a daze. When the door to the lounge opened, he seemed to have woken up from a dream. Finally, he rushed forward and the words that he thought he would never say rushed out of his throat. Supervisor Bai, you should know that I didn't choose a side. Supervisor Bai aimed her dark glasses at him. Are you refuting me? Fine, so what if I have wronged you? Yes, you are very self-aware. You gave up your job at the Apocalypse Laboratory. And your research mission you came to Xia City and took charge. I heard that you even want to pursue the He family's daughter? Yen Yonghua was a little stunned and did not know how to answer. Supervisor Bai's lips cracked slightly, revealing a beautiful and magnanimous smile. Do you want to realize your self-worth? What is your value? I'm sorry, I have to quote someone. Without the platform of Quantum Corporation and the Apocalypse Laboratory, you are nothing. You chose the excavation mission and chose to work as a human. You are destined to be dominated by God. If you chose the research mission and chose to work as a god, then dedicate yourself to God. Now do you understand where your mistake is? You are indeed on the wrong team. You are wrong because you are on your own side. Yen Yonghua was stunned on the spot. You are the first burner since the creation of Earth. You should understand where your value lies. If you are willing to cooperate, you can show it at any time. These 4 teams of deep blue walkers are still yours. Supervisor Bai raised her hand and shook her fingers lightly, bidding him farewell. Soon, Supervisor Bai's figure disappeared into the VIP passageway. Yen Yonghua stood at the door in a daze. Inside the room, Yuli saw him like this. He was delighted but also felt a little sad. In the end, all that was left was rejoicing. Fortunately, I am going to retire. I missed another chapter. As of yesterday, I have updated 30 chapters in 9 days. That is 6 chapters less than expected. I really overestimated myself. Fortunately, the holidays are coming soon. Current progress. Subscription monthly pass February 15th. In addition, adjust the update time. Try to avoid being affected by class affairs. The 4 updates will be at 8 o'clock, 1400 hours, 2000 hours and 2400 hours. Do your best to update at a fixed time. The positive and negative time should not exceed half an hour. But if you adjust the schedule, it will probably be at the end of the holidays. Everyone, please bear with these 2 points and lose weight. Chapter 165. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it was drizzling. Due to the terrible weather, the lighting on the low-altitude public bus was dim. Luo Nan grew more and more drowsy, and Mo Peng, who was next to him, yawned because of Luo Nan. Hey, you've been treating me for the past few days, but there's no effect at all. Cough, I just feel like sleeping. Why don't we sleep somewhere else? Well, you go to sleep now. If I fall into the game hall, will I still be able to do business with the owner? Luo Nan was discharged from the hospital on the 3rd and stayed at home for another 4 days. In the end, Mrs. Luo Shuqing felt that staying cooped up at home wasn't a good idea. She had Mo Peng urge Luo Nan to go out and relax. However, Luo Nan really wasn't in high spirits. Anyone who was carrying a bomb that could explode at any time would probably feel the same as him. More than a week of treatment was not as ineffective as Mo Peng had said. His lethargy, coughing, and other symptoms had been greatly alleviated, at least until last night. Yesterday was the night of October 6th. The Blood Flame Order, which had been silent for many days, probably felt that most of the people's energy was focused on the Deep Blue Walkers. The rumors regarding the human-faced arachnid had died down, so they resumed their grazing activities. As before, Mo Luan led the Wraith Sign, who had perfectly disguised himself as a former member of the same species. He circled all over Xia City. Then he was very lucky to bump into a member of the same species who wasn't so lucky. Wu, the Wraith Sign, swallowed a mouthful of the Wraith Sign, treating it as a dessert. Then Luo Nan had a lot of fun. Luo Nan had managed to alleviate the imbalance between his body and soul with great difficulty, but the Wraith Sign's feedback caused the situation to collapse in an instant. Were it not for Luo Nan's out-of-body state and digesting this benefit in advance, it was very likely that his blood would have splattered all over the health pod. It would have been a huge news event at Renai Hospital. Next, Luo Nan paced back and forth outside his fleshly body for most of the night. He made repeated attempts before he was able to use the dynamo core as a buffer to carefully store his soul back into his fleshly body. However, it was also this torment that caused his soul strength to increase by another level, causing the pressure on his physical body to increase once more. This caused all the healing he had done in the past few days to go to waste. All the symptoms showed signs of relapse. After exchanging a few words with Mo Peng, he started coughing again. Mo Peng didn't know what to do with him. He was going to the game hall to enjoy a feast later. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Now that he found it boring to play mobile games, he didn't know what to do. Out of boredom, he glanced at the public projector of the low-altitude bus station, which was showing the current hot topics. Star Associated Society's Deep Blue Walkers. The talkative host, the dull expert, the slick expert, and the well-produced video editing combined to form a quadrilateral that constantly changed its center of gravity. It was actually very attractive. Mo Peng was captivated by the edited footage of the Deep Blue Walker. At that moment, the program entered the interactive segment between the audience and the experts. The host eliminated the ridiculous topics like, are there mutants in the underground of Xia City? And does the Deep Blue Walker symbolize war? He chose a more professional and more basic question. There's a saying that Deep Blue Walkers don't just refer to a single piece of equipment. They also don't refer to a single person. Only when the burner is combined with a deep blue armor custom made for them can they be considered a true Deep Blue Walker. Is that right? Wrong. The dull expert was an authoritative figure in the relevant field. His professional knowledge was impeccable. He immediately replied, strictly speaking, Deep Blue Walkers can be considered a kind of systematic concept. It is established on the basis of system theory and the archetype neural format theory. It requires the human nervous system to be the core to arrange all kinds of resources and obtain the most optimal results. The first application research of this theory was conducted by Quantum Corporation's Deep Blue project. As for the walker, it's another name for the prototype machine. It has two meanings. The first is a pedestrian on the road. The second is a Buddhist term that specifically refers to a person who has entered the path of cultivation but hasn't taken a vow. In other words, this research is only at the beginning. It's just on the road. There's still a lot of follow-up work to do. In terms of the individual, the burner is fully deserving of being the core. It's just that it's limited by the natural conditions of the human body. It needs a special exoskeleton to supplement and assist. Therefore, the relationship between the burner and the custom-made armor is one of leading and supporting. It's not a parallel relationship. From my personal point of view, the relationship between man and machine should be that of core and supporting. The supporting equipment supports the lower limit of a Deep Blue walker. The autonomous consciousness of man determines the upper limit of a Deep Blue walker. The host was already starting to regret letting the dull expert speak. At this moment, who knew how many people in the audience at this moment? It was unknown how many people in the audience were watching. They would close their eyes and yawn. Or they would simply switch channels. Mo Peng was one of the yawning members of the audience. But when he turned his head, he saw that Luo Nan had raised his head at an unknown time. Luo Nan was staring fixedly at the projection screen. Alright, this wooden expert was promoting the archetype formatting theory. It was the thing that Luo Nan couldn't stand. Mo Peng was really worried that Luo Nan would get angry and fall sick again. He hurriedly advised, "This bro is showing off. It's as if he's the only one who understands. What you say isn't without reason." Luo Nan was referring to the words, autonomous consciousness of man, that came after the wooden expert. It coincided with the situation he had been tossing and turning these past few days. It was just that the situation was a bit more complicated. But Luo Nan could foresee that if he could increase the endurance of his fleshly body, then the lower limit of his abilities would correspondingly increase. The problem was how to do it. It was practically impossible to keep up with the tempo of increasing the strength of his fleshly body step by step. Then should he transform his body? Mo Peng gave him a push just as he was muttering to himself, "Let's go. We're at our stop." The low-altitude bus stopped at the most bustling city center of Xia City. No matter what time of day it was, this place was always filled with people. Luo Nan did not have a good feeling about this place because it was far too stifling. As he walked on the pedestrian walkway, the towering buildings all around him seemed as if they would collapse at any time. Ahaha, Frost River reality. I'm coming again. Mo Peng suddenly became excited. Luo Nan raised his head and saw the gorgeous holographic advertising wall of Frost River reality not too far away. It was currently broadcasting scenes of hot-blooded battles. Battles in the wilderness, battles in lava, battles in the deep sea, battles in space. Each and every battle scene seemed to be real. They attracted the gazes of passers-by. Virtual reality had a fatal attraction to almost all young people. As the largest reality-based chain store in Xia City, every Frost River reality was actually a large-scale amusement park. There was no need to worry about not having a place to kill time. Of course, with Mo Peng's personality, it was impossible for him to quietly come and play with 2 or 3 people. Just as he was looking left and right for people, a call came in. "Peng 17, Nanster, come over here. You guys are really slow. I've been drinking so much cold drinks that my spine is about to freeze." A group of young boys and girls had already stopped at an ice cream store near Frost River reality. They were just waiting for them to come over. Chapter 166. The Frozen Star ice cream shop was a famous chain business in Xia City. Although it was past peak season, it was backed by Frost River reality. Business was still great on Sunday nights. When Luo Nan and Mo Peng came in, they nearly got lost in the crowd. Luckily, the number of men and women waiting for them was not small. They were quite eye-catching as they waved. The group of people sat at 2 tables, which made the place more spacious. What was interesting was that most of the people here had the surname Mo. The Luo family was not very populous in Xia City, but the Mo family was flourishing here. Uncle Mo Haihang had 5 brothers and sisters, and he was related to them in various ways. It was not difficult at all for him to pull together hundreds of people. Including his cousins, Mo Peng's age was ranked 17th among his siblings. He was usually called Peng 17. During festivals, Luo Nan would not even be able to straighten his tongue when greeting his uncles, aunts, cousins or grandnephews. He would hide if he could. Of course, as a child living in his aunt's house, he was indeed an outsider to the Mo clan. He didn't have any blood relations with them, and with his temperament, most of his peers were just nodding acquaintances. Usually Moya and Mo Peng would drag him along so they would occasionally get together. Hear, hear. The one who waved the most cheerfully was Mo Han, the one who had just contacted Mo Peng. Mo Peng called her Sister 16, without the slightest trace of politeness. On the other hand, Luo Nan still called her Sister Han from a distance. In the past he had followed Mo Peng and called her Sister Pomegranate 16, but he did not want to call her that. It was probably because of the Mo family's genes. Other than Moya with her super long legs, the youngsters of the Mo family were not too tall. Mo Han, this lively girl, was clearly 2 years older than him. She was going to go to college next year, but she was shorter than Luo Nan by half a head. Her beaming smile made her look very innocent. She could play with anyone. Luo Nan followed Mo Peng's shouting. The oldest of the Mo family's siblings was Mo Chen. He was ranked 7th. He was already in his 3rd year, but he was the same as Mo Peng. He was a veteran game geek. His major was game design. He was always the leader of such activities. Mo Peng always acted as his assistant and began to count heads. 7th brother, 9th brother, 13th sister. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Sister Pomegranate, Chin was the only female member of Mo Cheng's team, and Brother Jia. It was normal for her to be here. However, the third son of the Mo family of Mo Cheng's gaming team was almost 30 years old together. He was at the age to start a family and start a career. Let's wait a little longer. He had long passed the age to play around with these young people. And third brother, he's also here, and he's treating us today. Put on airs. This was not right. Mo Peng was very surprised. Mo Han blinked and lowered her voice. I heard that they're here for a blind date. Till, Mo Peng still didn't understand. Blind date? Doesn't he have a girlfriend? They broke up. They used to be in the same unit. Now that he's jumped ship to a new company, they broke up quickly. This one seems to be someone he met through Sister Chen. She's in the University Department of Acumen College? Acumen College? What a coincidence. Mo Peng looked at Luo Nan. She's a teacher. No way. She's a student. Holy crap. An old cow eating young grass. Mo Han wrinkled her nose. I heard that she's a beauty. She's an officer in the University Department of Acumen College. She's graduating this year? Hey Lil, Nancy, it's time for you to play your role. Is there such a person in your school? Luo Nan just laughed. How could he say anything? Mo Peng was very impressed. It looks like third brother Chio has struck it rich. He invited the 10 of us to play games for the sake of a blind date? In the name of friendship. Mo Han had the appearance of someone who understood the world. Playing games is good. Don't look at how many people there are. Who cares about who in virtual reality? In the end, aren't they the ones alone? They can do whatever they want. Mo Peng gave a thumbs up to this Sister Pomegranate who dared to say anything. At this time, Mo Chio, who became the center of the conversation, walked into the ice cream shop. He was dressed casually. His height was average, but his figure was maintained quite well. He looked very spirited. He had the maturity of a person in society and a bit of superiority. Perhaps it was very lethal to young girls who had yet to leave school. Mo Chio frowned a bit at the noise of the ice cream shop. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. This wasn't his ideal location for a friendship. Actually, Frost River reality wasn't it either. But since he was already here, he would take things as they came. He greeted his group of brothers and sisters. His posture was calm and he looked very confident. After taking a seat, he asked Mo Ching, Ching 7, they haven't arrived yet? Chin just went to pick up her sister from the hospital. She just happened to be here to relax. She might be a bit late. How many people are coming over there? Currently there are 4, 3 women and 1 man. Chin and her sister are your targets. One of them might be her sister's boyfriend. Oh, they're here. As soon as Mo Ching said this, everyone's gazes turned towards him in unison. Which one is the blind date? Sister Chen's left or right? It's definitely the left. She's over there. She suits third bro's taste very well. The one on the right should be Sister Chen's sister. She's almost 1.7 meters tall. She's only in high school. Third bro shouldn't be this shameless. Mo Ping chuckled, high school? High school is good. She can socialize with me too. Mo Han extended her hand and gestured on top of his head. Girls with short bodies are cute. Boys with short bodies? She suddenly felt the unfriendly gazes from all around her halfway through her words. She stuck out her tongue and stopped talking. Chin's group had already arrived while they were whispering. Mo Chio took the lead and everyone stood up to greet them. Luo Nan just stood up when he saw the slim woman next to Sister Qin. He was stupefied. She didn't immediately discover Luo Nan in the crowd. Instead, she followed her sister and greeted everyone. But she still had to see. The two locked gazes. Luo Nan had already mentally prepared himself, but the other's face paled. She didn't make a sound. Sister Qin had already introduced herself clearly. My sister, Qin Xiaolin. Acumen College's Mutual Aid Association's secretary? That's right. She was Shui Lei's girlfriend, Qin Xiaolin, who was admitted to the hospital for treatment after suffering a fright at the Limestone Water Village pub last Friday. Luo Nan never expected to bump into her in this kind of situation. It looked like Qin Xiaolin's impression of him hadn't been eased by nearly 10 days of treatment. This was awkward. Chapter 167. It just so happened that Luo Nan rarely hung out with this group of people. Qin Xiaolin, who was also the Qin that Mo Qing spoke of, was not too familiar with Luo Nan. Qin Xiaolin, who was also the Qin that Mo Qing spoke of, was introduced to Luo Nan along the way. She was a bit stumped when she suddenly saw this somewhat unfamiliar face. The awkwardness that was displayed on the surface actually covered up Qin Xiaolin's unnatural movements. At this time, it was the experienced Mo Chio who came to the rescue. What do you think? Our fifth uncle's son, Nanster, has changed after attending Acumen College, right? You can say that Acumen College is nurturing people. Xiaolin, you didn't give me this much pressure the last time we met. Mo Chio's self-deprecation and flattery eased the awkwardness. Everyone laughed. However, there were also some parts that were a little inappropriate. Mo Han secretly complained, it's destroying people, right? They just came out of the hospital. Qin Xiaolin was able to form a battle squad with a bunch of big men. She was a character that wouldn't lose to men. She wasn't faking it. She immediately patted Luo Nan's shoulder. So it's Nanster. I didn't recognize you just now. It looks like we haven't played together much. You just got in this year, right? Xiaolin is 1 year ahead of you, so let her take care of you in the future. If they bully you, just tell me. If it was under normal circumstances, Mo Chio and Qin Xiaolin would have let the matter pass. But the problem was that Luo Nan wasn't a person with particularly strong adaptability. As for Qin Xiaolin, she was usually smart and capable, but her mind was unsettled right now. Her reaction was extremely terrible. She didn't follow up. She didn't even pay attention to her older sister's words. Junior Luo, long time no see. Qin Xiaolin's abnormal reaction immediately attracted Qin Xiaolin's attention. In fact, Qin Xiaolin's current performance was quite different from her previous performance. Mo Peng and Mo Han hid to the side and whispered, "Holy crap, there's something going on." But to Luo Nan, this level was practically a loud announcement right next to his ear. Luo Nan glared fiercely at them. Qin Xiaolin didn't hear the whispers on the other side. Even if she did, she would pretend not to hear it. She was a little curious. What? You guys know each other? Is Acumen College that small? I just met her last week. Senior Sister Qin even helped me. What else could Luo Nan say? He could only deal with it first. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. However, at this moment, a voice from the other side joined in. So you're also a junior from the academy? Last Friday, did you participate in the mutual assistance buffet party? The one who spoke was Mo Chio's target, Tianxi. She looked rather petite and beautiful, and her smile was especially alluring. No wonder Mo Chio was trying so hard to woo her. Yes. Hello, Senior Tian. Luo Nan also remembered that he seemed to have met this person before. It was either the student council or a member of the Student Assistance Association. However, President Chen Weikan was too dazzling back then, so the impression of the people behind him was already very shallow. If it wasn't for the fact that the information matched, he wouldn't have been able to recall it. Tianxi laughed quite happily. Acumen College's power has suddenly risen greatly here. Junior Luo, Xiaolin, Tianqi, and me are almost 1/3 of the total. Tianqi was the only male in Qin Xiaolin's group. He was also Tianxi's cousin. He was tall and thin and had a refined manner. It was obvious that he was interested in Qin Xiaolin. He stared at Luo Nan from the moment Qin Xiaolin's expression changed. His suspicion carried a hint of vigilance. However, when Tianxi mentioned him, she still smiled at Luo Nan. She extended her hand and shook hands with Luo Nan, calling him junior. At the very least, she didn't lack elegance. Luo Nan inexplicably felt that this was a bit absurd. He could sense it very clearly. Right now, the group of 4 from Acumen College was conversing back and forth, but they all coincidentally circled around one person. However, they were constantly affected by this person, Shuelei. Emotional issues. Luonan felt his teeth ache just thinking about it. Luonan wouldn't easily get involved in areas he didn't understand at all. However, he had participated in the unforeseen event between Shuelei and Qin Xiaolin to a large extent. He didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. Back at the Limestone Water Village pub, the human-faced arachnid had already set its eyes on Shuelei. It had taken control of the society's ability user, Black Wolf, to launch a pincer attack. It was clear that the human-faced arachnid wanted to treat Shuelei as food. If he hadn't exposed them on the spot, the consequences would have been too horrible to contemplate. But looking at it from another angle, if Luonan hadn't hypnotized the emotional Qin Xiaolin during the fight between Shuelei and the Black Wolf, Qin Xiaolin's psychological suggestion wouldn't have been so intense. He was more or less responsible. No matter how much undercurrent surged between the group of 4 from Acumen College, it wasn't the main topic of tonight's event. Frost River reality and the fellowship were the main topic. Please continue to the next page if this chapter doesn't end. Everyone got to know each other. They left their seats under Emochio's initiative. They entered the reception hall of Frost River reality in a grandiose manner through the inner door of the ice cream store. This was undoubtedly the intersection point between the virtual world and the real world. Even though they had yet to come into contact with the most core of reality technology, there were interactive AR virtual images everywhere in the hall. Iron-blooded, cool, cute. They were all jumbled together. It looked messy, but the high-frequency interactions between people and virtual images were still very interesting to watch. At the very least, it was very cute for girls. Luonan quietly fell to the back of the group amidst the sudden clamor. He muttered to himself for a bit and finally decided to give Shuelei a call. The call connected quickly. "Hello, Leicester. Where are you?" "I'm helping out at the Daoguan." Shuelei's voice was still very loud. "You're coming to class tomorrow, right? Why don't you come live in Blue Bay? We can go for a morning run together." Shuelei had called to greet Luonan when he was sick and hospitalized. He originally wanted to come and visit, but the hospital's visiting hours conflicted with the school's curriculum, so he gave up. He couldn't be as casual as Xie Junping. "I'm afraid my aunt won't agree." Luonan grinned. In the end, he brought up the topic of conversation. "Leicester, let me ask you something. You and senior sister Qin." There was no need to say it too clearly. Shuelei suddenly went silent. He wasn't someone who was good at hiding his personality. When he spoke again, he was extremely depressed. "She steeled her heart to not meet with me. She's not even picking up my phone right now. The doctor said that it's best to keep a bit of distance from her to avoid provoking her. Am I a freaking monster?" Luonan scratched his head when he heard this. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "I saw her at Frost River Reality. Right now I'm playing with her and a few friends. Why don't you come over and meet me? We can talk things over." "Which Frost River Reality?" "City Center, Fudong Main Street." "I'll be right there." Shuelei didn't say anything further. He hung up the phone and presumably rushed over in a hurry. But it would take at least 2 hours to get here from the River Wu district on the weekend. Luonan was really worried that he would come over empty-handed. He suddenly sensed something while he was pondering. He raised his head and saw Qin Xiaolin stop in front of him. She turned around to look at him. Chapter 168. Clearly, Qin Xiaolin was deliberately waiting for Luonan. Luonan greeted, "Senior sister Qin." Qin Xiaolin spoke very bluntly, "You're in contact with Leicester?" Luonan was a bit embarrassed. His coughing came surging up at this time and his face turned red. But now that they had pulled away from the team in front of them, some things could be said. "I heard that senior sister hasn't seen him all this time." "Actually, the matter at the time?" Luonan coughed with great difficulty. He wanted to explain, but he didn't know where to start. From the bottom of his heart, he felt that it was better for Qin Xiaolin to never know about this level of things. "I can more or less understand what happened." "Oh." Qin Xiaolin watched Luonan, but the focus of her gaze wasn't on his face. "My dad used to be a special police officer. Leicester's father was also a special police officer. Their profession always brings them into contact with some very dangerous things. When faced with vicious criminals and the like, there's no reason. Violence is the solution, right?" Luonan could only nod his head in understanding. The profession of a special police officer is very dangerous. Right now, Leicester's father is more or less a police officer. But my dad wasn't that lucky. He was blown to pieces during a mission. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. Luonan was stunned hearing this. He wanted to open his mouth to console her, but he felt that it was meaningless. Plus, Qin Xiaolan's attitude was very calm and unperturbed. Junior brother Luo, I don't need to hide it from you. Leicester is the type that I really like. He's just like my father. He's firm, strong, simple, and generous. But when I think about how he might be like my father in the future, struggling between all kinds of dangers and never getting tired of it, I can't accept this. Qin Xiaolan shook her head amidst Luonan's silence. She suddenly laughed, and more realistically, I can't understand Leicester and your logic. Luonan spoke in a low voice. Senior sister, you're saying? Qin Xiaolan stared at him. Why did you and Leicester act like it was a matter of course when faced with that kind of situation? You didn't feel surprised at all? Panic? It was as if the surroundings should be filled with these things. Did you know? Your expressions at the time made my heart go cold. At this point, Qin Xiaolan took a deep breath and finally said, You and I may not be people of the same world. I can't understand, and I don't want to understand, let alone come into contact with you. Luonan was silent again. A long while passed before he said, I have a general understanding of senior's intentions. But I don't know anything about this sort of thing. I just thought that between you and me, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It's rare to be able to say things out loud like this. I think with Leicester's personality, he's definitely not the kind of person who pesters others, right? At the same time, Luonan could see that Qin Xiaolan was an extremely rational person. She probably wouldn't turn back once she made her intentions clear. He was pessimistic about the results of Xuelei's visit. But no one could accept this for Xuelei. Qin Xiaolan was indeed reasonable. She nodded gently. All right, let him come. Let's make things clear. Then thank you, senior sister Qin. Luonan nodded and let out a secret sigh of relief. This sort of thing was a domain he was unable to understand. Forcing himself to do this caused a layer of hot sweat to appear on his back. The distance between the two and the group grew further and further. Many people turned their heads to look, especially Tianqi. He kept his gaze cast over, looking a bit gloomy. Luonan could understand the knot in Qin Xiaolan's heart, but some things weren't that easy to accept. He thought for a bit and couldn't help but ask, that person? Qin Xiaolan laughed. She actually flexed her arm to make a bulging motion. He's not my type. Clearly, Qin Xiaolan's mental state had calmed down quite a bit after talking about this matter. She could tell jokes now. This was obviously good for her, but the result for Xuelei would only be more negative. Luonan sighed in his mind. He and Qin Xiaolan increased their pace to catch up to the group. Right now, the situation of the large group was quite interesting. Most people were paying attention to the center of attention of this get-together, which was Emochio and Tianxi. However, Tianxi was paying attention to Tianqi, and Tianqi was paying attention to Qin Xiaolan. This chain of attention continued on, and unwittingly, Luonan and Qin Xiaolan became the center of everyone's gazes. Of course, Luonan and Qin Xiaolan were magnanimous, but people felt that they weren't magnanimous enough. Tianqi found it hard to say some things, so Tianxi smiled and said, Junior Nan, what are you talking about with our Xiaolan? Could it be that the matter last week wasn't settled? Was it because of the society? Alright. Mo Peng realized something in hindsight. Last Wednesday, I remember my sister saying that you were going to test for the Mystic Arts Research Society. Did you pass? Luonan was speechless. Mo Peng, you've gone stupid from playing games. Over 10 days have passed. Just how slow are you going to be? You're still holding on to the past and not letting go? Tianxi and Luonan broke into laughter and surprise before Luonan could respond. Tianxi said, The Mystic Arts Research Society? Tianqi is in the Mystic Arts Research Society. Luonan was a bit surprised. Tianqi finally had the chance to speak formally. He felt that it was a bit funny but also very strange. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. I've been helping out with the newcomer's interview, but I've never seen him before. Luonan, this name sounds quite familiar. He stared at Luonan, sizing him up for a while. Then he suddenly cried out involuntarily, Oh right. You're not the one who missed the exam, right? You didn't show up for the interview on Thursday. There were even people who tried to contact you, but they couldn't get in touch with you. The school system showed that you skipped classes for the entire day. We were all fired. Well, missed the exam? Skipped classes for the entire day? Acumen College, is this cool? Lil, Nanster, you really make people have a whole new level of respect for you. Luo Nan discovered very innocently that he had suddenly become the target of criticism. Tianqi was a bit inexplicably excited when this situation suddenly occurred. His words grew more and more discordant. It's already quite late for our society's entrance exam. You skipped the exam. Does that mean you haven't joined the society yet? On the other side, Tianqi shook her head. She turned to look at Qin Xiaolin. Our society doesn't seem to have any arrangements. Did you miss it when you were admitted to the hospital that day, Xiaolin? It'll be hard to enter the society after you pass that window. Tianqi's expression was awkward and strange. Upon closer inspection, it was probably the type where he wanted to laugh but was holding it in. He wanted to increase his strength but was forcefully holding it back. But in the end he still couldn't help but say, "Junior, it's not that I want to say this, but it's too much of a pity for you to miss the opportunity to enter the society. Plus, 8 credits will be deducted from your year." Luo Nan understood Tianqi's current state of mind very well. He felt a bit helpless and bored. When all was said and done, he had no enmity with this person. There was a 50% chance that they would work together in the same society in the future. He didn't want to make things too ugly. Just as Luo Nan was about to explain, Mo Han, who had just been loudly mocking Luo Nan and wanting to have a whole new level of respect for Luo Nan, was aroused by Tianqi's attitude. Her eyes jumped back in the blink of an eye. The Mystic Arts Research Society? The one that studies alchemy? How popular can a place like that be? Tianqi's tolerance for the little beauty was quite high. He laughed and spoke rather proudly, "Our society has ample funds. All sorts of projects are being carried out. They mainly lean towards mental and material interference, religious rituals, magical spells, Eastern metaphysics, and so on. Among them, large amounts of microscopic particles, human elements, psychology, systems theory, and other frontier subjects are involved." Mo Han snorted coldly, deliberately mystifying. "Little girl, this isn't mystifying." Suddenly, an arm wrapped around Mo Han's shoulder and pulled her into a hug, pressing half of the little girl's body into an embrace. The smell of alcohol and saliva sprayed onto the side of her face as she chuckled. Mo Han was caught off guard and screamed in fright. "I'm finally home. I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn festival. I'm going all out to finish writing." Chapter 169. Everything happened too suddenly. The group of people watched as Mo Han was forcefully held in someone's arms. They didn't react in time. Mo Peng, who was the closest, was the first to rush over. He grabbed the man's arm and helped the struggling Mo Han break free. Mo Tao, Mo Han's elder brother and the strongest member of the group, let out a low roar and rushed forward, slamming the man against the wall and grabbing his collar. "You're not going to die," Mo Tao said. "What are you doing?" "F***ck me. What the F***ck are you doing?" The man was pressed against the wall, but his voice was even louder than Mo Tao's. The smell of alcohol coming from his mouth was nauseating. He was clearly very drunk. Luo Nan and the others were at the place where they had just walked past the reception hall and entered the passage. The environment suddenly became narrow. A dozen or so people formed a circle, blocking most of the passage. The drunkard hoodlum shouted a few words, but he seemed to sober up a bit when he saw the dense mass of people before him. He was a bit scared for a time and stopped for 2 seconds. But soon, his drunken eyes caught a glimpse of a certain person in the crowd. He immediately stretched out his hand and swung it twice. Finally, he placed it on Mo Tao's shoulder and pointed at Tianqi, who was dumbfounded and had his mouth agape. "What's up, little Tianqi? You can just flip your face when you want it outside? The Officer Huang." Tianqi blurted out the first word, but he couldn't hold back the rest of the words. The man's many years of accumulated power made him feel weak in his heart. But the current situation truly exceeded the limits of his face. His fair face soon flushed red. If he could, Tianqi would certainly want to dig a hole in the ground and bury himself in it. Fortunately, his cousin Tianqi stepped forward bravely and angrily rebuked, "Huang Bingjin, what kind of drunken madness is this?" The drunkard hoodlum narrowed his eyes. With great difficulty, he saw Tianqi's face clearly under the blurred light of the hallway. He laughed again. "Tianqi. See Sister Cece." This guy called Huang Bingjin was at most in his 20s. His drunken face perfectly accentuated his usual arrogance. "Sister Cece, long time no see. What's up? Is it the student union or the student union? These people around me look unfamiliar. Don't crowd around me, I'm bored." He tried hard to pry Mo Tao's hand away but failed. This made him a little annoyed. Hey, you already know who I am. Who are you trying to fool? At that moment, some people in the crowd, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Luonan finally found some relevant memories. That's right, it's this Huang Bingjin. According to the intelligence report, he's an officer of the Mystic Arts Research Society. He's a typical rich second generation and a pervert. Last Friday night at the Limestone Water Village pub, Cat Eyes had smashed him into the wall. Perhaps it was because he had taken too many drugs at the time, but that experience clearly did not teach him a sufficient lesson. Tianxi naturally knew the ins and outs of Huang Bingjin. She wasn't afraid of his position in the school, but she was afraid of the Huang family's social influence. Her expression was very unsightly. Huang Bingjin, who did you come with? If you're drunk, go puke in the toilet. Is it fun to lose face outside? The Mystic Arts Research Society and Acumen College have lost all face because of you. Huang Bingjin had a cheeky grin on his face. It's fine. Sister Cece is so pretty. She'll grow back sooner or later. Everyone could see that there was no way to communicate with this fellow at this time. Mo Chio confirmed that Mo Han wasn't injured, so he didn't want to tangle with her any longer. He took advantage of the situation to close the distance between him and Tianxi. He lightly embraced her shoulder. Let's go. We can't lower ourselves to the level of a drunkard. Taojiu, let's go. Mo Tao glared fiercely at Huang Bingjin. He grabbed Huang Bingjin by the collar and slammed him into the wall before letting go. Who knew that once Huang Bingjin regained his freedom, he would run his mouth like a train. Hey, my friend over there. You're familiar with this line of work. Did you ask me for permission before doing this? Did you ask their president, Chin Chin? This fellow had an intoxicated look on his face, but his heart wasn't. His words were poisonous. Tianxi's face turned green from anger, but the more she was like this, the more excited Huang Bingjin became. So you guys are all hooking up, but I'm not allowed to hug a little girl. Come, little girl. Let me tell you about the Mystic Arts Research Society. He reached out to hug Mo Han as he spoke, but Mo Han, who had come back to her senses, wasn't someone easy to deal with. She immediately kicked out, hitting Huang Bingjin's shin bone. Mo Han was wearing pointy leather shoes. Her kick was filled with hatred. Huang Bingjin immediately let out a miserable groan. He hugged his leg and jumped, but he didn't stand firm. He fell to the ground, battered and exhausted. Let's go. Mo Chio didn't want to make a big deal out of this. He suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and called his companions to leave. The group of people walked inside, leaving Huang Bingjin behind. Huang Bingjin shouted, F***ck me, F***ck me. When they reached the corner of the passage, Mo Peng turned his head and swept a glance at Huang Bingjin, who was still cursing on the ground. He muttered, this guy's mouth is too sharp. I'm afraid I won't be able to have fun tonight. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Luo Nan grunted. He looked at Tianxi and Tianqi's preoccupied appearances. This was indeed the case. When they turned the corner, Luo Nan's line of sight could no longer be seen. However, the range of Luo Nan's mental senses still covered Huang Bingjin. He discovered that someone had gone over to greet Huang Bingjin just as they turned the corner. Clearly, this person had seen the conflict earlier but intentionally avoided trouble. Luo Nan had actually seen this person before. He was Lu Tao from Xie Juanping's circle of friends. At the same time, he was also a high-ranking member of the construction society. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and had a very scholarly appearance. Huang Bingjin was from the Mystic Arts Research Society. The circle of this group of rich second-generation kids far exceeded the circle of the school societies. It didn't seem like a cruel bidding war was going on at all. Tonight, Mo Chio had actually spared no expense for this get-together. He specifically booked a large private room to facilitate the preparation work before entering. After the group of people entered the private room, they were guided by the AI to the scanning area to stand. The relevant equipment examined their body shapes, body characteristics, and so on. Data models were built, peripherals were matched, and so on were used to achieve the best effect of reality. Actually, the vast majority of people had accounts at Frost River Reality. A single scan was enough to connect with their previous data. They could stand for a bit and come out. But there were always exceptions to everything. Only Luo Nan could not get through the scan. Mo Peng was impatient. What's going on? Nanster, I brought you to play before. As a veteran gaming geek, Mo Cheng was quite clear about the things here. He shook his head and said, Nanster, you came last year. You're half a head taller than last year. You've developed, but you don't play often. The system needs to readjust. Luo Nan was well aware that the drug stimulation had caused quite a large change to his body over the years. Now there was no more drug stimulation, but under the stimulation of soul strength, the changes would probably be even greater in the days to come. He laughed. Actually, it's nothing. I told you earlier that I wouldn't play sensual games. Why wouldn't you play? Emohan found it strange. Isn't this the reason we came to Frost River Reality? This? Luo Nan's skin finally went through, but a rare yellow light lit up in the scanning area. There was also a prompt. Distinguished customer, we are very sorry to disturb your gaming progress. Since you are currently undergoing treatment, according to the doctor's advice, please do not engage in highly stimulating games. Strive to update on time tomorrow and try to make up for it. Current payment progress. Monthly subscription March 15th. Chapter 170. Following the sound of the notification, Luo Nan's account in Frost River Reality had many privileges temporarily locked down. They were displayed as restricted. Even the peripherals and equipment that were sent over were different from those of other people. Everyone in the room looked at each other in dismay. I've lived long enough to see something like this happen? Even an expert like Mo Cheng had never seen such a situation before. He clicked his tongue in wonder for a time. Luo Nan was calm. The scan results were one thing. The most important thing was that his medical records from Rinai Hospital had been entered into the database. This situation only occurred when the two were combined. It could not be said that Frost River Reality was wrong. Many of the current somatosensory games used microstimulation of the nervous system to obtain more realistic effects. For Luo Nan, whose nervous system operated at a high rate, this was a big taboo. Mo Cheng walked over to look at the specific restrictions and shook his head. I can't go to Area A and B. I can only play in Area C. The gaming area of Frost River Reality had a total of 3 levels. Area A was Reality Replica, Area B was Reality Immersion, and Area C was Reality Experience. The intensity of stimulation to the nervous system decreased in order. Of course, the degree of playability was the same. Area C was generally targeted at the elderly, children, or adults who wanted to relax. Young people who pursued excitement generally disdained this area. Luo Nan had talked to Mo Peng about the intensity of the game before he came. He just did not expect Frost River Reality and the hospital to be so extreme. Mo Peng reacted quickly. He spoke with a sense of loyalty. Then how about this? I'll accompany Nanster to Area C to practice his wilderness skills. You guys go wherever you need to go. Luo Nan walked out of the scan area and put on his combat suit peripherals. At the same time he shook his head. I don't need you to accompany me. You can go play with Brother Seven and the others. It was not easy for a gaming madman like Mo Peng to come here. He definitely wanted to go to the most exciting area, Area A, to experience the effects of reality to the fullest. Mo Peng was still thinking about it. At this time, Tianxi smiled and raised her hand. I can't play games. I can't stand things that are too exciting. I'll stay in Area C. Since she had started, Mo Chio laughed. I'll also stay in Area C. Everyone else can play however they want. Just be careful. Ching 7, don't go crazy. Watch over everyone. No problem. Mo Ching said this. It was hard to say how much he listened. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Qin Xiaolin wasn't very interested, but Mo Han and Mo Rue pulled her to Area B. Tianqi also had a lot on his mind, but he definitely had to be on guard against this kind of natural third wheel. At that moment, Mo Tao and Mo Peng dragged him to Area A. The group of people were quickly assigned and left in a huff. Nanster, where do you want to go play? Mo Chio asked Luo Nan's opinion in a very considerate manner. The problem was that he was closer to Tianxi right now. It seemed that he was really interested in Tianxi. Huang Bingzhen's dirty words didn't affect him at all. Luo Nan didn't have any intentions of being a third wheel. He found a random reason. Third brother, you guys don't need to worry about me. I'm going to the 10 days in the wilderness to do some basic training. I'm also going to train my body in passing. Alone? No, Mo Peng can also turn on the guidance mode in Zone A. I'll call him when I get there. Luo Nan's wristband received a call as he spoke. It was an unfamiliar number. It just so happened that Luo Nan was about to pull away from the 2 main participants of the social gathering. Luo Nan raised his hand and gestured for them to move to the side. Hello, Mr. Luo. I'm Bai Xinyan. Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment before he reacted. By Xinyan? Wasn't that the brilliant disciple of Dr. Clay that Octopus Bro had mentioned? The one who had come to Xia City to help Octopus Bro with his early treatment and data collection? Especially since she was Mr. Bai's daughter, Luo Nan hurriedly added a greeting. Hello, Ms. Bai. Bai Xinyan's voice was low and gentle. It was very pleasing to the ear. Mr. Luo, the examination will only start tomorrow night. However, I just retrieved the information from Ren AI Hospital and the association. I saw the results of the automatic examination last night. It seems that there are signs of relapse. How do you feel now? Luo Nan secretly admired this person's strict attitude, but he couldn't say that the wraith sign was cheating him. He could only vaguely say, I really do feel a bit uncomfortable. I feel like the pressure has increased. Perhaps your soul power has grown again. There will always be a period of rapid growth before and after an ability user awakens. But for the current you, this is not good news. Bai Xinyan had accurately grasped the root of the problem and was very frank. Luo Nan was mentally prepared. Bai Xinyan continued, for the next step of treatment, I need to update some data here. I hope Mr. Luo can cooperate. I need to go back to the hospital. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Is it? No need. I noticed that the Frozen Star system retrieved your information from Ren AI Hospital about 5 minutes ago. The Frozen Star system? It's the main system of Frost River Reality. It's located in the supercomputer Black Dome. It's the carrier of several experimental projects of the Star Alliance Committee, the military, and the Ability User Society. It has a relatively close relationship with us. You're at Frost River Reality right now, right? Fudong Avenue in the city center? He had been caught. Luo Nan was a bit embarrassed. He could only explain, I'm in Area C and my privileges are locked. No, Mr. Luo. You can't be in Area C. I need you to go to Area A. Frost River Reality Area A's competition space has a classic competition event. You should have heard of it before. It's the Frost River Waterway. Frost River Reality is named after it. Yes, I know. Not only did Luo Nan know, he had personally experienced it. It was when he followed Mo Peng and called Mo Han's sister Pomegranate. That time was simply too embarrassing. Luo Nan still had lingering fears just thinking about it. The Frost River Waterway is actually a human body limit test project developed by our laboratory. It's equipped with an information collection device that can be used as a detection device to revise the relevant data. Then, Luo Nan was just about to ask when his wristband vibrated. He received an email in his inbox. Inside was an electronic key and the relevant method of use. Bai Xinyan's deep and melodious voice lingered in his ear. This is the temporary privileges of the Frost River Waterway. You can enter Area A through this. Then all you need to do is follow the requirements of the system. Join and do your best to persevere until the end of the game. That's it? Yes, I'll arrive in about 2 hours to extract the data. If Mr. Luo has the strength to spare, you might as well do it a few more times. This will help the system collect more comprehensive information. Luo Nan was very surprised. Ms. Bai has already arrived in Xia City? I just arrived not long ago. Bai Xinyan did not say much. She directly concluded, I'm looking forward to our meeting. I hope you have a good time. The call ended. Luo Nan looked at his wristband. There was an indescribable strangeness. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Hold on. The Frost River Waterway. Do it a few more times? Luo Nan felt that his spine was about to freeze in an instant. Chapter 171. Luo Nan stood still. He stopped at the boundary between Area C and the guide area. Ahead was the reality area filled with AR virtual images. Through the strengthening of the external goggles, these virtual images had a bit of a cartoon flavor to them. It was hard to tell the difference between reality and illusion. Some advanced players could choose their virtual guide. From virtual idols to game heroes there was no problem. Therefore the area ahead suddenly became lively and clamorous. Real human figures and virtual images mixed together. It was a dazzling sight. Luo Nan talked as he walked. His speed was very slow. Mo Chio and Tian Si were already in front of him. He thought for a bit and did not enter Area C. Instead, he used the Hexier to contact Bro Octopus. After a week of preparation, Octopus had already begun the research work on Luo Yuandao's psychotropic drug. Plus he was quite ambitious. He combined Luo Nan's practical results and opened up several groups of drugs for comparative research. He really turned into an octopus, spending several days in a row in high-intensity work. His days and nights had long since turned upside down. When Luonan contacted him, Octopus managed to find some time to take a nap in the laboratory. He was still a bit muddle-headed when he picked up the call. But when he heard Luonan's description, he instantly woke up. White Salt has returned to the country. He contacted you and wants you to go to the Frost River waterway? Octopus blurted out by Sinyan's nickname. He washed his face again to clear his mind. After pondering for a while, he said, I know about the Frost River Reality Project. The government, the military, the society, as well as many financial groups and companies are all involved. Chairman Ouyang is also a technical consultant. Our psychic wave network platform actually has a transplant. Of course it's not suitable for you. But if it's somatosensory stimulation, the corresponding danger will be greatly reduced. Frankly speaking, White Salt's plan is a bit radical. But it is very much in line with the style of Dr. Clay's School of Reconstruction. Their school relies on top-notch nerve repair technology. They are very happy to test the limits of the human body in every case. They work on these limits, combining repair and strengthening into one. There is no school that can match up to this advantage. Of course, you need to pay attention to controlling the intensity. Luonan roughly understood. Since Octopus said this, there shouldn't be any major problems. He thanked Octopus and hung up. He decided to follow by Sinyan's instructions. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Following that, he followed the instructions on the key email and loaded the electronic key into his social authority system. He obtained temporary authority and connected to the Frozen Star system. Soon the system guidance arrived. Luonan followed the instructions and left Area C. He took the special elevator to the 3rd floor of Frost River Reality. The elevator door opened, and 2 ushers dressed as female Starship soldiers said at the same time, Welcome, sir. The 2 guides saw Luonan, who had the face of a student, standing in the elevator car wearing eye-catching restricted peripherals. The latter half of the guide's speech was a mess. Luonan was able to confirm that the 2 guides were real people and not virtual images. He nodded in response and walked out of the elevator. It was completely different from the bustling scene below. Upon entering the 3rd floor, it was extremely quiet. The gloomy black light and the dense light spots at the top formed a miniature starry sky environment. It was as if even breathing could be heard. Luonan could also feel that his arrival seemed to have caused trouble for the 2 guides, but he couldn't always explain, I'm just here for a physical examination. He could only feign ignorance and politely ask for relevant information according to the system notification. I want to go to Frost River number 3. How do I get there? The 2 guides, one with long hair and the other with short hair, were both charming and pleasant. The 2 exchanged a few glances when faced with Luonan's question. Only then did the short-haired guide speak. Sir, Frost River number 3 is an independent area. Can we confirm your corresponding authority? Okay. Luonan was just about to raise his hand when the long-haired guide made a hand gesture to the side of the scanner to release light. The light swept across Luonan's combat suit peripherals and a pale yellow indicator light lit up. Luonan immediately received a system notification. Hello, respected customer. You have accidentally entered an unauthorized area. Please follow the instructions of the nearby guide and leave as soon as possible to avoid causing any accidents. The 2 guides looked at each other again. When they faced Luonan again, they simultaneously revealed professional sweet smiles. Sir, you have also seen the situation. I hope you can cooperate. Wait, it's not that. Luonan could roughly guess that the authority on his wristband was not connected to the peripherals of Frost River Reality. He was just about to explain when the electricity behind him stopped. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The ladder door opened again and someone walked out unsteadily. Another drunkard. Was Frost River Reality an amusement center or a hotel or a restaurant? However, the person who came was clearly a regular customer. The 2 guides saw him and simultaneously bowed in greeting. Mr. Hu. The drunkard walked over. He looked quite young. He casually placed his arm on the shoulder of the short-haired guide. The latter hurriedly reached out to support him and revealed a sweet smile. Mr. Hu, what do you have in mind? Mr. Hu was still clear-headed. Give me a private room and an environment that can quickly hypnotize me. Let me sleep for a while. Yes, C7. These people can really drink. Okay, Mr. Hu. The short-haired guide supported Luonan and walked inside. She indicated to her companion to quickly solve Luo Nan's problem. Mr. Hu moved 2 steps sideways like a crab. He could not walk properly. He got closer to Luo Nan and his drunken eyes swept over Luo Nan's face. At this moment he was stunned. He suddenly reached out to grab the goggles on Luo Nan's face. Luo Nan took half a step back and avoided the grab. He frowned. Mr. Hu, fellow student. The 2 guides spoke almost at the same time, but they did not know what to say. It was clear that they could not handle this chaotic situation. Mr. Hu was about to reach out, but at this moment, there was a knock on the door. The door of a room at the end of the corridor opened and a woman in a dark professional suit walked out. Seeing this person, the 2 guides seemed to have found their backbone. They called out at the same time, "Managerine." The lady also noticed the situation here and walked over. As she got closer, her appearance gradually appeared in the dim light. She looked to be in her 30s. She had a beautiful face and an elegant demeanor. Her exquisite makeup brought out the mature charm of a woman. Her gaze swept across Luo Nan and Mr. Hu's faces. She immediately smiled at Mr. Hu and said, "Little boss, you got drunk the moment you came here. Do you think I specialize in sobering up soup?" Mr. Hu was inexplicably afraid of her. He straightened his body and waved his hand. "Sister Luo, I didn't mean that." Madame Yin turned her face again. She wanted to say something to Luo Nan, but she saw this young man staring at her face blankly. He was clearly in a daze. Chapter 172. Kids these days. Madame Yin laughed dumbly. She first asked the 2 guides for the results of the clearance scan. With a glance, she knew what was going on. She walked in front of the drunken Mr. Hu and separated the 2 of them. She said to Luo Nan, "Student, this is the VIP area of Frost River Reality. Judging from the clearance of your equipment, you shouldn't be here." Wait. On the other side, Mr. Hu had sobered up quite a bit. However, when he spoke hurriedly, his tongue was not as smooth as before. After saying "wait" a few times, he finally managed to squeeze out the rest of the sentence. That brother, you look familiar. Can you take off the mirror and take a look?" Although his words were rough, the meaning behind them was surprisingly polite. Luo Nan's heart skipped a beat. He carefully looked at Mr. Hu's face and saw that the outline of his face was a bit swollen due to excessive drinking. He actually looked a bit familiar. After thinking for a bit, he took off the goggles. With just this one movement, a piece of information suddenly popped up in the corner of his memory. "Senior Hu." "Aha, Luo Nan, Junior Nan." Mr. Hu shook off the guide's support and came forward to give Luo Nan a hug. Luo Nan could not avoid it for fear that he would not be able to hold on and fall to the ground. Yes, Luo Nan remembered now. This Mr. Hu was the one who had brought the construction society, Yen Yongguo's lawyer, and a bunch of other people to Gear last week. He was the student council cadre who had come to visit. He was Xie Junping's best friend. Xie Junping called him Hu-san. His real name should be Hu Huaying. According to Xie Junping, this person was a bit muddle-headed, but he was a reliable person. However, was his relationship with Hu-san that good? On the other side, although Hu Huaying was 70 to 80% drunk, his heart was still clear. He and Luo Nan had only met once, but Xie Junping and Luo Nan were not. Hu Huaying also worked in the club activities department. He had seen everything that Xie Junping had been doing for the past week. Xie Junping had been running back and forth for Luo Nan to join the order club. Ever since they knew each other, when had he ever seen this young master so worried? Even though he was very clear about Xie Junping's sexual orientation, he couldn't help but think, could it be that this bro turned the Xie family's playboy gay? As Xie Junping's best friend, Hu Huaying was very clear about her attitude. Showing enthusiasm was just the beginning, the key was the next step. "Junior brother, you have to go to class tomorrow, right? If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Are you done?" Hu Huaying expressed that she had always been concerned, and took the opportunity to get closer. "You want to experience the VIP area, right? Actually, you could have just told me in advance. I still have some shares here." She lowered her voice and raised her voice. "Of course, there's also Manager Yin Lo. Junping and I call her sister. She's always taken care of us. Sister Lu, this is my junior Luo Nan. He's very close to Junping." "Luo Nan." Yin Lu stared at Luo Nan. The latter lowered his eyelids, looking a little introverted. He called out softly, "Sister Lu?" Hu Huaying saw that Luo Nan was too introverted and was afraid that he would feel awkward. She laughed. "I made a mistake today. No matter what, since I'm here, I'll let junior brother stay in the same room as me. I'm just going to sleep anyway. Luo Nan opened his mouth but didn't say anything. His gaze returned to Yin Li's face and he couldn't look away. Yin Li smiled faintly. Her gaze swept past Hu Huaying and Luo Nan. I still have to give face to the little boss. Sister Lu, you're magnanimous. Hu Huaying laughed and pulled Luo Nan to thank Yin Lu. Luo Nan said, Thank you, Sister Lu. His eyelids lowered again. At this time Yin Lu sighed helplessly. Luo Nan, I'll call you Brother Nan. You should know how the restrictions came about. You can experience it in the VIP room, but you must take care of your body. Oh, your body hasn't recovered yet, right? I understand. Hu Huaying patted her chest and took charge. God knows if the alcohol had passed. Yin Lu nodded at them. Little boss and Brother Nan, you guys have fun. There's a problem with the renovation of Sky Capital Water Village. I'll go take a look. Hu Huaying laughed. Once the branch opens, it'll be your territory once you leave the school gate. It's all for you bosses to earn money. Yin Li shook her head and smiled. She bid farewell to the two and walked into the elevator. Before the elevator door closed, Luo Nan glanced at Yin Lu again. However, he was caught by Yin Lu. This female manager, who had an extremely outstanding appearance and style, gave Luo Nan another smile. She gently waved her hand, bidding him farewell. Then the two guides picked the rooms and led Hu Huaying and Luo Nan to the inner part of the VIP area. According to Hu Huaying's introduction, the overall structure of the VIP area was distributed like a swarm. They were all separated luxurious rooms. Everything in the gaming area below could be found here. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. And it would only be more exquisite. The VIP rooms were like the private rooms below. However, the gaming area was integrated into it. There was also a scanning area in the room. Under the guidance of the two guides, Luo Nan re-entered this area and started scanning again. This time, all the permissions were unlocked and a new set of peripheral equipment was sent over. The two guides had gone through professional training. They stepped forward and helped Luo Nan put on the combat suit and take care of the equipment. Ever since Luo Nan could remember, he had never received the treatment of having someone help him dress. Frankly speaking, there was an indescribable comfort when 4 delicate hands touched his body, be it physiology or psychology. He was even a bit embarrassed. This time there was no trace of acting involved. Hu Huaying was overjoyed. She kept egging Luo Nan on, wanting to see the world in chaos. The short-haired guide was very courageous. She saw that Luo Nan really did not have much experience. He was a standard rookie, so she deliberately reached out to touch his chest and teased him, "Your acting is quite good. You even called yourself Frost River number 3. You scared us." Luo Nan's heart skipped a beat. He whispered in a hoarse voice, "Can you not tell Manager Yin about this? It's embarrassing. We're not that talkative." As she spoke, the short-haired guide seemed to have thought of something. She turned her head and muttered to her companion. The two of them tried hard to hold back their laughter, but they were not very successful. Little did they know that they could not hide anything from Luo Nan's mental senses. The short-haired guide said, "This kid definitely has a maternal complex." When he looked at Manager Yin, his eyes were glued to her. What could Luo Nan say? He could only pretend that he did not know. It was fine as long as these two people agreed to his request. The problem was that the two guides were not the only ones who thought this way. Hu Huaying was the same. She leaned on Luo Nan's shoulder with the help of alcohol. "Junior Nan, that Sister Lu is beautiful but not easy to mess with. Don't get hot-headed or you'll be embarrassed in the future." What the hell was going on? Luo Nan was speechless for a moment. The real reason he paid attention to Yin Lu was actually very simple. They had met before. However, it was through the Wraith Sign's perspective. At that time, Yin Lu appeared at the Blood Flame Order's sacrificial activities as a deputy first ablatum. She was fully deserving of being a high-ranking member of the Order. Frost River reality was worthy of being a cooperative project between the government, the military, and the society. Now, even the Order wanted to get involved. He just did not know if the major shareholders knew about the identity of a sensitive person like Yin Lu. Or was it just a coincidence? Chapter 173. Hu Huaying was still chattering away. Sister Lu is a talent in both technology and management. She was poached by the company at a high price. Apparently she has a very powerful background. It's not like no one has tried to get her before, but they all ended up in disgrace. Luo Nan could more or less obtain some information about Yin Lu from Hu Huaying's chatter. This was in contrast to what he learned from the Wraith sign. However, Hu Huaying quickly diverted the topic. She was eager to bring Luo Nan to experience the relatively easy-to-get kind of experience. Luo Nan's response to this was to wear a special tactical helmet peripheral to block out all of the outside world's messy information. The default option of the tactical helmet was augmented reality. The interior of the VIP arena room was designed to look like a starship. Coupled with a bit of AR technology, it was a pretty good immersive experience. However, Luo Nan soon lost his cool. The tactical helmet was gradually affecting his 5 senses to help him further enhance the experience. However, it was precisely this influence that stimulated Luo Nan's mental senses. Under the circumstances where his 5 senses were confused, his all-encompassing senses began to take over everything. Illusory and real scenes intertwined. In the end, the real side still prevailed. Under the clairvoyance of his mental senses, the light and shadow effects were revealed one by one. There was no longer any reality to speak of. Luo Nan felt a bit helpless. This was an unexpected trouble. If this trend continued, he would probably be cut off from virtual reality in the future. Hu Huaying and the 2 guides were absolutely unable to understand Luo Nan's feelings. After routinely asking a few questions about his impressions, they quietly retreated to avoid disturbing Luo Nan's immersion experience. They each did their own thing. Little did they know that Luo Nan's mental senses gave him a better understanding of their actions. The long-haired guide retreated first. The short-haired guide flirted with Hu Huaying for a while before leaving with a smile on her face. Hu Huaying's anger was ignited. It was not appropriate for her to be presumptuous beside Luo Nan. She could only laugh and curse as she went to the resting area to find a place to sleep. However, he soon received a call. It was probably one of his friends urging him to hurry up. After refusing twice, he could only helplessly get up and quietly leave the room. Just like that, Luo Nan was the only one left in the entire VIP room to carry out his boring attempts. After a few tries, he finally lost all his patience. He took off the tactical helmet and walked out of the high-class fully enclosed maglev cabin. He was lost in thought. This situation wasn't right. If it was only for normal people to use, it would be fine, but from Bai Xinyan and Brother Octopus. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was obvious that the association was involved in this project. There were a lot of mentally enhanced people like him in the association. If they all had this kind of out-of-character experience, then wouldn't the Frost River waterway become a joke? Luo Nan discovered that he might have taken a wrong path when he thought about this logic. He hurriedly looked down at his wristband and found the details of temporary privileges in the social privileges section. He then waved his hand. As expected, the system guidance with temporary authority had yet to end. It was still reminding him of the relevant location, and the target was still Frost River number 3. He should have realized it a long time ago. The authority Bai Xinyan gave him was clearly not compatible with the local reality system. They might not even be on the same data chain. You should have told me then. But that deputy officiant is at the side. Am I thinking too much? Luo Nan felt that he had done quite a few unnecessary things just now. When all was said and done, he lacked social experience and his vigilance was too strong. Sometimes he made things complicated. He thought about how he had asked the 2 guides to keep it a secret not too long ago. Now that he had to ask them for help, it was inevitable that he would be embarrassed again. Luo Nan could not go back to the past. He could only shake his head and walk out with his tactical helmet between his legs. Just as he walked out of the door, he remembered that there was actually a call service in the VIP room. He rolled his eyes at the sky. But at this time, the system guidance on his wristband came. It showed that the Frost River number 3 he had been searching for a long time had entered the signal link range. Do you want to activate it? Luo Nan was dumbfounded. Then he chose yes. There was a soft sound. The door of a room in front of Luo Nan opened automatically. It was originally pitch black inside, but then the lights automatically lit up. Luo Nan walked over. After he entered, the door closed automatically, isolating the inside from the outside. He felt quite emotional for a moment. He had originally come to examine his body openly. How did he end up doing it sneakily in a moment of carelessness? When the door closed, his wristband clearly vibrated, realizing the data link. The system guidance was fully activated. A very classic virtual image of a female. In any case, it was the type that Luo Nan found familiar. It was projected before his eyes. Hello, Explorer Luo Nan. Welcome to a brand new adventure. I am your guide Nina. According to the rules of the adventure manual, Please enter the scanning area and equip yourself with the appropriate equipment. The scene guidance started just like that? Luonan confirmed that it seemed that this room, or perhaps the permission given to him by Xinyan, directly locked the game project. It did not give him the opportunity to choose. This was similar to his experience in the VIP room. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. It was not quite the same. This was nothing. Luonan followed the guide and entered the scanning area. This was the third time tonight. The scanning this time was more detailed than the previous 2 times. The duration was longer as well. It even required him to do a few sets of movements from time to time against the released demonstration video. There was no doubt that this gave off a more professional feeling. Luonan could feel that the combat suit on his body was undergoing fine adjustments according to his movements, making it more comfortable. Then should he put on the helmet that was placed aside? As he was thinking, the helmet beside him flashed with red light. The virtual guide Nina spoke softly. Explorer Luonan, the system has confirmed that your current tactical helmet does not meet the requirements of the adventure. It needs to be changed. Please follow the guide and perform data binding on the new helmet. At the same time, the automatic mechanical platform turned around and presented a new tactical helmet to Luonan. Luonan took it and scanned it. It seemed to be no different from the previous one just by looking at its appearance. He shook his head and put on the new helmet. But the following interface made him a bit surprised. The interface was pitch black. There was only a silver-white dot of light in front of him. The system guidance asked him to focus his attention on the dot of light. Luonan naturally did as he was told. Next, the dot of light split up. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, and they spread out to the 2 sides. Soon they turned to the limits of the range of his vision. But the system guidance still asked him to lock onto the additional dot of light. If it was a normal person, they would probably be stupefied. But for Luonan, who had grasped all-encompassing mental senses, it could not be any easier. Very naturally, he entered the level of mental senses from the basic visual senses. That's right, this was a special guide for ability users. Luonan suddenly realized. The dot of light split up into 360 dots. They covered the front, back, left, right, up, down, and so on. Luonan locked onto them one by one. Then all the dots of light converged into one. They were located right above the top of his head and pressed into his skull. Luonan's mental senses automatically cut inwards. Suddenly, countless lights and shadows appeared before his eyes. They interweaved with each other. After stabilizing, Luonan discovered that he had already entered the interior of a starship. The door that had just opened was in front of him. A metal-constructed corridor extended forward. Luonan hesitated for a moment before extending his hand to touch the opened alloy door. He saw that he was wearing a glove on his hand. The hard touch of the glove was fed back to him in an incomparably real way. The high wall of illusion and reality shattered with a bang at this moment. Chapter 174. On the east coast of Xia City, there was a dangerous section of the Huanhai Highway. Beyond the guardrail of the highway was a cliff. Under the dark sky, the fine rain was like mist, erasing the boundary between the cliff and the sky. This Huanhai Highway was the first-class highway to be paved with magnetic pavement. In the beginning it was used as a technical practice. Later, because of its status as a classic, it gradually became the preferred choice for street racers. Although the weather was bad, the thrill-seeking racers did not mind. Sports cars sped along the highway one after another. With the help of the maglev system, they easily reached speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour. The headlights of the car were like a long sword that cut horizontally, cutting the curtain of night and the rain into pieces. They also made the cliff glisten and stand out from the hazy sea and sky. Xinyan stood at the top of the cliff, looking at the staircase road that extended into the distance. The cars racing on the road were like fireflies moving in the opposite direction, gradually becoming indistinguishable in the curtain of rain. Xia City is still the same. There's no difference between it and Luoyang City. Faced with the harsh environment after the war, it was difficult to maintain the cultural characteristics of a large metropolitan area that was built in a hurry. A high degree of homogeneity was inevitable. It was precisely in such a boring jungle of steel that the seemingly turbulent but actually monotonous structure of human nature was created. Because of this, every gifted type is worthy of special treatment, from the perspective of species diversity. Xinyan had her hands in the pockets of her windbreaker. She faced the sea breeze and took a step forward. The fluttering raindrops condensed into fine ice crystals under her feet, carrying her body. Just like this, it condensed, shattered, and solidified, forming a faintly discernible ice crystal staircase. She crossed over the multi-layered road and arrived at the bottom of the cliff. There was no trace of the void behind her. Right now, Bai Xinyan was standing on a protruding platform about 10 meters above sea level. It was big enough for 2 people to stand on. On the inside of the platform, there was a recess of more than 3 meters deep and nearly 2 meters high. Traces of artificial excavation could be seen. Bai Xinyan didn't go in. She looked around and saw that there was an open waterproof metal box inside. Women's clothes were scattered messily on top of it, already soaked by the drizzle that blew in. How many years has it been since I've changed my casual lifestyle? Bai Xinyan looked away and stood on the platform facing the sea. On one side of the sea, the rain fell like a curtain. It was a hazy scene. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The wind and rain blew against her windbreaker, making it flutter loudly, but it didn't make her feel the slightest bit wet. Below her, among the jagged rocks, the tide was rising. Thick white foam floated on the blurry outline of the tide, swaying back and forth. Bai Xinyan gazed at the surface of the sea. After a moment, the corners of her lips curled up. The rain that fell around her once again turned into fine ice crystals. They fell onto the rocks in the tide with a rustling sound. In the time it took to take 2 or 3 breaths, the constantly swaying white foam of the tide had turned into all sorts of strange ice crystals, and the chill was still seeping into the seawater. Very soon, the reef and the half-frozen tide formed a twisted silhouette that looked like the face of a ferocious ghost. 1, Bai thought. But he counted to 3. Suddenly, amidst the sound of the wind and the waves, there was a clanging sound that spread far and wide. The ghost face on the surface of the sea suddenly tore open. Correspondingly, the reef cracked and the seawater split. A slender figure broke out of the water from the middle of the crack and screamed, "Frozen, frozen to death, frozen to death." Zhang Yingying rushed out of the water. Her tight-fitting diving suit with red and black stripes showed off her good figure, but there was a layer of floating ice on her. Her loose hair was also covered with ice beads, messy and lacking in layers, which made her look a bit awkward. Her bare feet stepped on the slippery rock wall, and with a leap she flew onto the platform. The sharp aura around her body had yet to dissipate, and as she cut through the curtain of rain, there was a hissing sound. On the platform, Bai Xinyan did not dodge. Instead, she smiled and opened her arms wide to embrace the figure that was charging at her. The camel-colored windbreaker was flipped up and covered both of them. Ah, white salt, white salt. Zhang Yingying was so excited that she wanted to roll around in Bai Xinyan's arms and rub off the ice droplets. Bai Xinyan, on the other hand, did not seem to care at all. She hugged the young girl in her arms tightly, and her chin rested on her hair that was covered in ice beads. She did not say anything, but she continued to smile. The excitement of meeting an old friend finally died down a little. Zhang Yingying put some distance between them. When she saw Bai Xinyan's face, she couldn't help but take a few bites. Ah, you haven't changed at all. You've been in the lab all day and you haven't melted. But when she truly came back to her senses, she lowered her head to look at the surface of the sea, where the chill had yet to subside. She swallowed back the words she was about to say. Wow! How did you do it? This sort of freezing air has already far exceeded the scope of normal. You're no longer just an architect. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. An extraordinaire? Not yet. It's just a little trick. It's not the same as your white rainbow. But I haven't seen you for 3 years, and you've suddenly become very serious in your training. Zhang Yingying rolled her pretty eyes. Yeah, I'm making a fool of myself. I still want face. Do you? Bai Xinyan used her cheek to lightly rub against the young girl's delicate and slightly cool cheek. Zhang Yingying giggled. Then she asked Bai Xinyan about her plans. This time we're in Xia City. We're going to be at least a month. How are we going to arrange our schedule? How about you live with me? We'll go play to our heart's content every day. I'm going to see the boss tomorrow morning. Then I'll deal with other matters. I also have an appointment tonight, but it's just a formality. Bai Xinyan's wristband vibrated as she spoke. She glanced at it and nodded slightly. The society has dug up quite a few new people in recent years. The scout is pretty good. Scout. All right. That fellow is your patient. Zhang Yingying's eyeballs swiveled. A few thoughts floated to the surface. Bai Xinyan saw this and knew that this scout was already registered with Zhang Yingying. She took the opportunity to understand the situation. The precision of this person's senses is very impressive. It's the precision direction, but it's closer to the microscopic. Why does he have the nickname Scout? This person, he really does have some talent. Zhang Yingying blinked. She was a bit baffled. You guys haven't met yet, right? How can you tell? I rely on my skills. Bai Xinyan shook her wrist, letting the data on her wristband be mapped out. Zhang Yingying could only understand a part of it, but she grasped the key information. Frost River Waterway? That fellow's nerves are damaged and he hasn't even awakened yet. Can he hold on? TSK. Is there a need to torment him like this? Bai Xinyan smiled. When a patient receives treatment, he has to walk with two legs. One is confidence and the other is obedience. Right now, I'm just strengthening the latter element. Zhang Yingying had a baffled expression. That fellow can be a bit jumpy at times, but he hasn't started yet, right? Yeah. He's not being disobedient. I just want to make him more obedient. Oh, pervert. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.